swooped me and locked him up. I went down.
911, do you need police, fire, ambulance, and probably police? Was there a motorcycle driver?
Something that I never really planned or thought about is getting in a wreck.
I knew that I was always destined to be a trial lawyer. Now, I had a pretty broad experience in the law, but I started practicing and was representing people that were injured, and I was representing insurance companies that were operating against the person that was hurt.
Bills started adding up. I had hospital bills that I had to go get x-rays and MRI and all this other stuff that basically came out of my pocket until Law Tigers got involved.
I became nationally known for doing brain injury and spine injury work. I was representing a lot of motorcycle riders who unfortunately are subject to very serious injuries.
The guys that it came out to my house when I was all laid up, filled out the paperwork, mailed it in for me. A lot of Tigers helped me recover that plus what I didn't know about.
How can we help the most people? Doing what I love to do, which is to ride motorcycles and to represent those that are injured and get their families back in the place they need to be to get their life back.
If you ride, you obviously know Law Tigers. I mean, in my book, I go to rallies, I see them. They're there for us riders, help support us when we are hit or, taken down. Don't hesitate to call them Law Tigers.
All right, welcome to the award-winning 99% Radio Network here in the Fishbowl, broadcasting you live from the Fishbowl Radio Network studios here in Globe Life Park, the heart of the entertainment district in Arlington, Texas. Our show is sponsored by the Veterans Resource and Outreach Center, the VROC, located at 4210 Industrial Street in Garland, Texas. Visit the VROC on the web at www.lifemessage_veteran.com for see what all the services they can provide for you. And Microdot Helmet, located at 480 Debbie Lane in Mansfield, Texas. Microdot Helmet, the home of the smallest, lightest, and most comfortable helmet there is to wear. Visit Mad Dog Mike at Scoot Dog Leather and Apparel in Mansfield, Texas. And Law Dogs. Law Tigers. Nobody should be without Law Tigers. You want to ride your bike and you have a mishap, Law Tigers should be the first call you make. So visit lawtigers.com. Welcome, brothers. And once again, because I rushed today, my mind is not with it. But we're going to have a great show, man. Focus. I am focusing. But, I just got to bring up some, heartfelt news that it's everything we fight against every single day. It's our mission when we do Walk the Bridge. And we tell people every day to please, if you are battling, reach out to somebody, get the help that you need. The NYPD lost a deputy commander, Dennis Mulhaney, of the 107 precinct. He lost his battle with PTSD, and he took his own life. Now, this commander did ask for help, but it was too late. And we have to recognize the signs before that somebody gets down that rabbit hole too deep. I'm sure people have seen the red flags. Nobody wants to get involved. They think it's not their business. It is your business. If you know a first responder or a veteran that is battling, if they're changing attitude, if they are were an active police officer, and now they are just a rock, just a door chalk in the precinct. If you notice anything, these are your warning signs. Make sure you reach out to them, talk to them, ask them. It's okay not to be okay. Make sure you recognize the warning signs before it's too late, man. This was a tragedy for the NYPD. Once again, in 2019 they lost 11 to suicide. I spoke with Karen Solomon of Blue Help. We're up to, this makes number 38 for the year, where we're averaging over 10 law enforcement officers a month. We got to make sure that our peer support groups are being supported. Those men and women that are taking on that challenge, we have to make sure we support them in every aspect, and that they are given the resources and the training to be able to help the fellow officers. We have a SWAT officer here today. Tank, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Hey, did you like the way we represented you on the poster?
A tank.
Tank.
That's
yeah.
pretty cool, wasn't it?
Saw a picture. I used to be on my Harley, actually, on my work bike. Yeah.
And you're the perfect person to ask about this. When everybody turns around and says, when the cop is in trouble, they call the SWAT team, right? But when a cop is in trouble with mental health, they should look at their peer support. They should look at these guys and trust them and have confidence in them that they're going to get the help that they need. You guys are running into battle all the time. Our peer support officers that are in the precincts have to be supported, and we have to build the confidence in them to save lives. Just like you guys save lives every day on the streets, SWAT officers are out there protecting our officers. We need our peer support groups to be protecting our officers inside the command. But that was my whole thing today. So I want to welcome brothers. Mongo 12.
What's going on, brother?
Howdy.
What's going on, man? We got a great show today. You want to bring it about?
Really excited. Well, as you mentioned, we have our special guest host, Tank, back for an encore appearance. He did such a great job the first time when you were up with the ski bunnies and having fun in the spa.
See, here it is. You, just like my other people that I'm around.
Your other people?
My other people. I got to go home to her, so I'm not going to call out my wife on the air.
You just
right?
did.
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, it just happened.
But you talk about I was out with the snow bunnies, and I was out. Yes, we could joke about it, but it's also a mental health issue.
Yes.
I love
you, brother.
I know. But see, this is the thing we have to look at, and that's why I'm 100% transparent with all my mental health issues. And
yes,
for those of you don't know, I did do 30 days in a PTSD trauma center, and my cohorts think it's was a ski resort, and we hung out in jacuzzis.
Well, listen, you chastised us, but you didn't deny that you weren't hanging out with the snow bunnies.
Yeah, in the jacuzzi with the chef.
I mean, good
I'm
for you.
not going to deny it.
Good for you, brother.
We had your back.
I know. I'm not going to. Okay.
Yeah, I would just stop.
Yeah, I'm going to end up digging a hole. I'm going to end up digging a hole.
Yeah.
Well,
But,
anyway, so we're really happy to have Tank back today. Also, this really is a great show, and we apologize first. Jose Hernandez, the third generation Cuban cigar roller, had to postpone. He will be on the show, a show coming up in the near future, but he had an illness in the family that he had to attend to, so he'll be with us another day. But really excited. We've been wanting to do this show for a while now with all the stuff that's been going on at the southern border, terrorists crossing over.
Is that where Jose went?
Something
Something happened? Something happened?
Let's hope not. I think Royce City is safe for the moment, and that's Faustino Cigars that he just opened within the last month or so out there. But with all the stuff that's been going on,
just some last month, huh? Isn't that funny how that all worked out? He opened up around last month. What, around like January, February?
I don't know. I don't know. You have to ask Mongo about that, but.
You bust my balls, I can bust your balls.
You can bust right back, buddy. He'll be on a show in the future. But today, given all the stuff that's going on with the domestic terror attacks on the rise, we have retired Officer Stevens formerly from Garland PD, who was intimately involved in the the terrorist attack at the Culwell Center back in 2015.
Saved many lives.
Saved many lives. And so we're going to kind of hear his story about all of that. I see Dave Swavey from Guns and Hoses is with him. Dave was with Garland PD at that time as well. And I'm sure we're going to hear from him later on in the show. So we're just going to break down basically what happened that day, hear Officer Stevens' story. He actually got to meet the President of the United States, spend a few private moments with him, which regardless of who the president is, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And I'm impressed by that. So when I hear,
awarded by him.
Yeah,
he was awarded by
he
him.
got a medal presented to him by President Obama, which, again, it wouldn't matter if it was Obama or who it was. That's a big honor.
That's the president of the United
That's
States.
the president of the United
And that's
States.
how you look at it. It's,
And that's a cool. Listen, if you got to spend, a couple minutes with any president of the United States, would be a big thing. So we want to hear about that. Not many people get to do that, to be honest. So especially like regular working guys,
Right.
it doesn't happen very often. So we want to hear about that as well. And I think this is just as good a time as any. We got the Ochos coming up, and Harley Davidson of Dallas is a participant in that event, and they have provided us with some cool things to give away. So right now, to caller number 3, somebody
That will be in 2.5 weeks.
All right, so here's what we got. So caller number 3, all right, whoever that is, all right, and it's 214-556, not you. You can't call.
Damn.
214-556-6239. So we got this really cool. I've actually seen one of these on a Heritage Softail. So it's a little thing you can put your wallet, your phone in. It's got a water bottle with it. Nice little Harley Davidson
So
logo.
it's a fanny pack without a belt.
Kinda, yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of a fanny pack, but we kind of got one of those in your map case. You can there's caller number 1.
Are you serious? Are we actually going to call?
Hello, caller number 1. You're on the air.
Caller 1, dang it! I called too fast.
Call
This is Pound.
Hang up, call back.
I don't think you'll have an issue.
Hurry up, Greg's calling.
Uh-oh,
we got-
okay, all right.
wow.
Caller, thank you for calling. We got another one coming in.
Yep.
This is awesome.
Caller number 2.
He can count.
You're
that.
on the air. Uh-oh.
Hello, this is Gio with Lama Dallas.
Oh, we can't hear him.
Hey, Gio, how's it going?
Good. How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing great. I hate to tell you, though, you're
You're
calling
calling
number 2.
Hang up. But
Hang up.
Oh,
We got
we
another
got
one.
caller number 3. Thanks for calling. There, see, you're wrong. Go ahead and say
I was wrong.
Hey, caller number 3. Who do we have on the
Am I
air?
calling number 3?
You are caller number 3.
Wow.
Well, this is Wes Massey.
How's it going, brother?
Great. So you mean I won something?
You actually, I don't know if you can see it right now, you won this handy dandy leather
Man purse.
tool bag. You won a
Wait, did you won the whole thing?
yeah, you won it all together.
that's it?
Yep, it's all
Oh,
together.
awesome.
Only one.
That's a huge.
And you
that's a
won this
huge,
right there. Yeah, these are really nice
I'm-
leather gears. This will go on the bike you get, but Wes, it has to be a Harley. You can't put this on a
You
Honda.
damn right it's gonna be. Oh yeah,
Well,
definitely.
hold on now. Why do we have? Why do
You
we?
ride,
Yeah,
you ride a
that's gonna be
BMW.
hard.
Why did we? Why
I know.
I don't
Yeah,
understand that.
it's-
It's bike hate, man.
I see it now.
All right, Wes. So you can pick these up at the Ocho Awards Friday night, April 30th at 7 o'clock. Come see us, and we'll give it to you at that time.
Roger that. I'll be there.
All right.
Congratulations. Thanks for calling in,
Congratulations
Wes.
to caller number 3.
There you go.
All
See?
right.
Thanks, brother.
Another call?
Awesome show.
All right, thanks. Hey, welcome to 99% Radio Network. You're on the air.
Caller number 4.
Hey, am I calling number 3?
No, but you
No.
won a pen.
No, you're calling number 4. So
But you have set radio history by being the 4th caller.
Never before has this place been called by 4 people.
That's John F.W.
Come on. I had to try and use this new phone to get here. I figured I screwed it up by being number 3.
We have a box of paper clips we'll give you. Okay?
All right, so what do I get for number one?
If you were number one, you would have got an 18-pack of Bud Light. But since you're number 4,
You get Pabst
you get
Blue
the
Ribbon.
empty. You get Pabst Blue Ribbon
Why an 18-pack? Why can't it be a case? I don't understand.
because you weren't calling number
Inflation.
1.
All right, have a great show, my brothers. I love you guys.
See you,
Thank
John.
And I saw the promo. The promo was fantastic, John. You're good kids.
Thanks, brother. You know,
All right, brothers. Have a great show. How's your faces? I'll talk to you soon.
all right.
All right, bro.
That's John F.W. He's the president of the Omega Gamma Delta Iota fraternity out of Grapevine, Texas. Man, always a pleasure to have him in our corner. You know, we were just discussing the terrorist attack that happened in Garland with Officer Stevens. You know, I was just talking this over with Sam last night. Yesterday, well, a couple of days ago, we had a mass shooting here in Allen, Texas, right? And 6 members of the family lost their lives. Well, actually, 2 of them took, a suicide pact, and they ended up losing their lives. Well, Frontline Crisis Intervention and Sam and Badge of Honor went over to Allen Police Department to find out, make sure those officers are okay. You know, one of the things the officers in the group turned around and said, we just never expected this type of thing to happen in Allen, Texas. And that kind of, when Sam told me that, it kind of took me back, and it took me back to what's going on here today when we talked to Greg about the attack in Garland. We cannot look at a police department on its size of officers like New York or Dallas or, Chicago. Anything could happen anywhere. Mayberry RFD, man. I mean, you could have a problem in Mayberry. So we can't look at our incidents. That's wind, man. We can't look at our incidents that happen to our officers. Hey, we only got 12 officers in our department. We're not going to run into that. Well, yeah, you may. So we got to start looking at every time you put on a uniform, something bad could happen. You can, something terrible can be at that next corner. In a split second, things can change. And Greg's going to tell us all about that, how, in a split second, his life's changed. Never thought that was going to happen. So that's why mental preparedness is the key to, being a police officer, because you never know what's going to happen no matter where you are, what town, how many officers, and it's sad that we look at our officers that way going, hey, it's a small town, it wouldn't happen here. It may.
Do you mind if I interject?
Sure, yeah, without a doubt.
So, I'm pride myself in Garland because it's a lot of stuff that we look at like that, and the chief, he listens when he can, as best as he can, and to his SWAT team.
Right.
The running joke of the SWAT team is people in general with SWAT will go, you guys are always thinking the worst, and well, that's kind of what you pay us for.
And plus you have to,
we
right?
think of the worst and what can happen. We think about not only what you would do in this situation, what the solutions could be, or the protection or the parameters of it. We start thinking about the logistics and, quite honestly, the cleanup. And I was thinking about when you were talking about that, and you're absolutely right. But sometimes what happens is you start focusing on what will you do in this situation. Be prepared when you walk around the corner. So when we're all police officers, that's what we were trained to do. You look in every corner like there could be a potential bad guy there, but just be able to adapt if something happens, good, bad, or indifferent. But sometimes what happens when you have a lack of training like that is that you actually forget about what it takes, the aftermath. So you have this thing in Allen, and I quite honestly don't know anything about Allen PD. I have some officers I've worked with over there. But just for example, so now afterwards, what do you have? You have the scene itself, and you have the logistics that take care of the scene, and then you have the parameters around that scene and what the mission statement is, and then you have the cleanup, and then you have the officers that went through it, which is awesome what you took care of, and start looking out for them. And then you have all the little things that happen afterwards, and it's not always about just right then what could happen at the moment. It's what's the training to do prior to, being ready for it,
Yep.
given the right tool to take care of it, good, bad, or indifferent, and then afterwards, what are the logistics of that? And that it's so sometimes all I like to say when I hear that, and I think that's a wonderful statement, is you, as they say, the quote big picture. You got to look at the entire situation and how it affects you prior to, during, and especially after. Typically after is a huge thing. We say in SWAT all the time. You know, quite honestly, with the training that we have and the training that our officers have, the training that Greg had, he had the proper tools in the training at the time, and he paid attention to it in order to react the way he did, and he acted perfectly.
Right.
Okay, but who's ready for the cleanup? What do you do afterwards? We're very good at knowing what to do at the moment.
Right.
What do we do afterwards? Whether it be mental health, the cleanup, the logistics. Food, water. It's huge.
And that just goes.
My 2
cents.
cents.
You're 100% spot on, and that's what brings to point when we talk about mental health. Our peer support groups, and we were discussing this prior to the show. Logistics.
Yeah.
Logistics. They play a factor in every aspect, even in placement of where your office is.
Absolutely.
Or the signs that are on your office. Nobody. I go to therapy every week. Okay, and I got to walk down like 2 hallways, and nothing is labeled mental health or psychiatrist in session. It's just not it's not labeled that way because there are other offices in there, and people are a little embarrassed to maybe walk into a psychiatrist's office or discuss things. So the reason they don't label their offices, mental health or psychiatry or whatever, is for that reason. And we see this more and more again. The peer support groups are great, but they're not being utilized to their full potential. Mm-hmm. We see time and time again, and I hear this in the NYPD a lot, is that we have our peer support officers out there, but at any given time, me and you could be having a conversation about something about you're having an issue, right? Hey, we got to get you back out on the street. And they're pushing these guys back out on the street because crime. Hey, listen, crime is rampant in every state, and we have to get more officers out there. We don't have time to sit and have a cup of coffee. Manpower problem.
Yeah.
So they're saying they're peer support officers, but they're actually being utilized to go walk a beat or go give out tickets or fight crime or whatever they got to do. They're not being utilized to their full potential. Now, that is a false safety net we're giving our officers. We're putting this net under our officers saying, hey, we got peer support, and then as soon as that officer goes and asks for help, we're pulling that safety net away and putting that peer support officer out on the street and saying, go do it, go take care of this, or go run this car accident, or go run this aided case, or whatever it is. And we can't do that, and that's a problem. We're giving our peer support groups anywhere between 2 and 8 hours of training. That's nothing. We got to keep them going. We got to let them learn. We got to learn signs and symptoms, recognize the flags, build trust in the command, because if not, we all know, we're all sitting here, we're all officers here, and we know our trust issues. We have trust issues.
Officer trusting what?
So that's a big statement, and with the people that we have in this studio right here, we have over probably 150 years of law enforcement experience.
Probably 200. Are you counting them?
That
is okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I mean, Greg's example of mental awareness and training, and what he did that day, proves that you need that in the department. He was trained right. He was given the right tools. He was mentally prepared. Not all departments are going to be like that. And that's we have officers out there that do not have that opportunity that Greg had, or a lot of officers out there do. Everybody should be on the same battlefield. Everybody should have the same rules of engagement, and everybody should have the same training aspects nationally.
Yeah, and we've talked about this subject being a taboo subject too, and we talk about, whether I told you now the police officers in the academy in Garland, they're very much aware of it.
Yep.
And the chief has done absolutely an outstanding job and passionately is working towards this. But quite honestly, when as a 20-year officer right now, if I say back in my day when I went through the academy, 20 years ago, then or Greg Stevens or Lieutenant Swavey, it was like everything else. Hey, man, put a Band-Aid on it, right?
Suck it up.
Put a Band-Aid on it. So it's really those officers we're working on, too. I feel, and I say this because it's still quite new, I feel that they're doing a great job. And the officer, Todd Jerry, that's working on it's doing an outstanding job. And our peer support officers are doing a great job, especially volunteering all the time that they do. With that being said, I feel that the newer officers understand a little bit better, and that's what I appreciate about our PD. The ones that are older, that's the problem. The ones that are older that have, and I don't want to use the word suffer, but let's call it burying. They bury it. Because there's compartmentalizing and then there's burying.
Yeah, yeah.
We're really good at compartmentalizing, but eventually we just kind of bury. And it needs to come to the surface. And sometimes we see the after effect of it much later. And that's a problem.
Yeah, and, police departments like Garland, Rowlett, they are working towards fixing the problem. Hey, it's not an overnight fix. It's not going to be a quick fix, but at least they're being proactive.
They are, absolutely.
They're being very proactive. They're trying with Grand Prairie Police Department here with Assistant Chief Christina Martinez, the chief of Grand Prairie, very proactive. But you see a lot of departments that aren't. You see a lot of departments put up these smoke and mirrors, and that they have those old-time chiefs that suck it up. My lieutenant on the midnights used to be behind the desk with a bottle of scotch and, hey, kid, get out of here. That was it. I don't care what happened to you on the street.
Tank hit on a good point, though. For those of us that are older, we were brought up, bury that shit. Don't bring it out on the street with you. Leave it at home. Leave your problems at home. Or if something happened,
like your lieutenant, told you to part the Red Sea or something? Was bringing it? That was a long time ago.
Mental health. Back in our day, when we were involved in critical incidents, you'd go see. They had a shrink. His name was Randy Nutter. That was his name. You'd go see him. He'd say, "Hey, you okay? Yep, doing good.
Yeah.
Cleared." That was it. There wasn't anything and go in depth. And if I've learned one thing over the last little while from you, it's like you said, you have complete transparency about what happened to you, and that's good because you're setting an example for me, and for other cops, active duty cops that you come into contact with, and because that burying it stuff is not the way to do it, because as you well know, your example is one of the closest ones that we know of, right? That shit builds up.
Oh yeah.
And one day, it bubbles over, and maybe you can control the bubble over, maybe you can't. Maybe it just goes too far, and I think we see some of these older cops, when it happens to them, it bubbles over, goes too far, and they end up taking their own life. But I've learned this from you about, my father, police officer, 35 years. That was his mantra. Cover that shit up. Dad,
right.
How do you deal with this? Shut your mouth. You don't talk about it out there, because then you'll have that little cloud attached to you, and you move on. So that's how I was brought up. But now when you get involved in talking to these guys day in and day out, you're doing peer support things, right? And you do it without a safety net. You do it without any official backing or whatever. Just like with you, you're running around, we've told your story many times on the air. You're putting so much time, so much effort. You're going without sleep. You're getting calls at all hours. You're chasing people around DFW, trying to find them and take care of them to keep them from killing themselves. The shit takes a toll on you. And the only way to deal with it is to be upfront and open and like, you know what? I'm telling you today, I'm not good. I'm not good today. I'm overwhelmed with this shit, and I need some help.
But then comes what's the proper action when he says that, and that's part of it too. And that goes back to what Sideshow was saying is once this officer says this, then what is the proper protocol? Is it to give him a day? Is it to give him an hour, a longer lunch break?
You got to give him. Well,
so it's after, and it's like you talk about. You said that hey, it's going to put a cloud over your head. It's what your dad said. Okay, well, so I think we could all relate to that. Let's really break it down to what it is. hey, officer, it's okay to be human. Because quite honestly, when we're on the streets, people are seeking our help. I mean,
Right.
let's say we're not going to Thanksgiving to have dinner with the family, right? We're going to Thanksgiving because grandma put a butcher knife through your uncle, right? Okay?
Yeah.
So that's what happened. So we're going to there to fix that problem. We can't show that we have problems, because to do that would then, how much trust would they have? Well, this guy's got problems, he's going to fix ours. So we're
Right.
used to putting the shield of
Armor.
I'm not perfect, but I'm okay. I'm not so much blemished. I can fix these problems. Well, you probably can help fix the problems because you've had a lot of training. The problem is that you've now accepted that you're possibly not human, and you start feeding into this. And so quite honestly, to get on my soapbox, that was part of the public. And sometimes the public maybe might lose that, hey, I'm human. You know, I wear clothes like this. I'm Officer Gibson right now, and I always will be, but I'm Officer Gibson in civilian clothes. And this is what I look like.
Right.
Familiarity is also a problem, because, like in your case, and we're going a whole different direction than what I thought we were going to go here.
But this is the best. This is a good direction to go, and it's a good topic.
You know, so you're going through all this stuff, and we talk about it on the air. Hey, you know, you helped this person this past week, or you helped that person, and then I remember very clearly you said, you know, back in September, early September, we need a day to sit down and talk about some stuff, and I kick myself in the ass for this. No, I do. Because that old school attitude, I was like, fuck, I don't want to talk about my feelings today.
That's okay.
I didn't really say that, but I said, you know.
You gave me the FU button.
Okay?
That's what you did. You gave me the FU button. No.
Kind of. I mean, really, how you cut it, that's really what it is, because it's like, no, it'll be okay. We can put this off, and, you know, maybe he don't want to do it. Maybe he does. Maybe, you know, you go through all those things in your head. And what went through my head is you know, he'll be okay. This is old hat to him. He's just frustrated. It'll pass.
Right. All right. This is a perfect example.
But it's because we're seeing this stuff all the time.
This is a perfect example, Brian. Yeah, I ask you right now, specifically with that situation, I ask you right now, if a veteran would have called someone you didn't even know and you were at V-Rock, would you or would you not have helped him? Yes or no question?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So then you come over here, and this is going to sound really crappy, all right? Then you come over here, and you have a really good friend named Sideshow, and he says, what? We need to have a talk.
Yeah.
And what do you do?
Say, yeah, you're going to be okay.
So what's the difference? Okay, and I'm going to let you off the hook, but this is my point. What's the difference between two partner officers? What's this difference?
Yeah.
Because what we do is we say, we're going to go help that person across the street. We're going to go help that robbery. We're going to go help that burglary. We're going to go help that person. But then when Greg and I riding together, he goes, man, I really got to get something off my chest. Hey, yeah, we will do that, brother, but 1 second, let's go ahead and get this robbery real quick.
Right.
Well, now, granted, I understand in the grand scheme of things, we're on duty, we need to take care of the robbery. I understand, but my point is where do we keep continuing being second and third and fourth? Well, that's because we, in general, as our personalities, if I see as you truly are a cop, you are always second. You put everything first.
Yep.
Other than you and your friends. Because if I'm wearing blue and he's wearing blue and he's wearing blue and you're all wearing blue, then, well, hey, man, suck it up, Buttercup.
We must be all okay.
Or you look at him and you go,
and you're dead on that.
And we're wrong about that.
But
I'm not trying to, but I'm saying that's something we have to fix too.
No, you're right.
If you have the time, let's fix ourselves.
I'm going to take it a step further on that. Is I'm having issues, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm not talking about a shooting. I'm not talking about a dead body, right? I come up to my peer support group because we all have problems outside your job, financial, relationship, children, you know, whatever it is, past traumas, whatever they are still traumas in our lives, and our job affects what happens to us. Yeah. So we may have a financial problem, right? But our job as a police officer, law enforcement, makes that financial problem even bigger because it's more stress. So now I come into my peer support group, and I turn around and I go to the peer support officer and I say, hey man, I'm having some financial difficulty. I just really can't make ends meet. Peer support, well, that's really not job related.
Well, for us, let's be honest, your peer support group most of the time is in the front seat of a Crown Vic or a Chevy Impala
But what I'm saying is, you know, a lot of our officers, especially our retired officers, who are taking their lives. We talk about traumatic brain injuries, TPIs, right? it's the same thing. We have that injury. Most of these officers probably wouldn't have taken their lives. Some of them take their lives because of financial. Their wife cheated on them. This, that, the other thing, right? But because of the stress of the job, because of the coping mechanisms and the skills that they were not afforded, they do not know how to deal with this. They are working in a hypervigilant state. So everything's got to be a quick fix. Everything can be fixed, right? But when we're home and we're off duty, some of those problems are much larger than they really are in our minds.
That's
right?
what we talked about like in your case, you put a Band-Aid on it. You got a main artery bleeder, but you're just sticking a Band-Aid on it.
That's it.
And it's not really staunching the flow of emotions and everything. But it's like, oh, it's sideshow. He does this all by do this all. I mean, you're always working to help other people. So
Right.
that's your cure. You'll go back to that. You'll just work harder and that will take care of it. But it really doesn't work that way. It just keeps building the shit up higher and higher.
Stack trauma.
And finally that stack, it goes. We're learning that.
Right. And it's stack trauma, and it happens from day one in the academy to the day you retire. It never stops. The traumas just build up and build up and build up, and if they're not taken care of, it's like a lawn. If you don't mow it, it's just going to overgrow, and before you know it, you're going to be in the woods. You ain't going to be able to find your way out. So,
I do have a quick question.
Yeah.
Has anyone seen Mongo? I don't. Oh, there he is.
Did you doze off again, brother?
No, I didn't doze off. I just, I listened to your conversation, and I know you guys are all right, but I guess it's unfortunately in my case, my entire life, I've just learned to compartmentalize, and I internalize, and I just throw it away. I just deal, because I don't like talking about my shit, and I've had enough of it, but I've also learned it's my shit, lock it up, put it away, move on. And that's just the way I am. So, I mean, I agree with all your ideas, because you're all right. And I'm probably wrong, but I don't.
You're not wrong. See, and you're wrong for saying.
Well, see,
wrong.
I told that to the first Dr. Nutter after my first shooting. I had to go see him, and he sat me down. I was a young officer, I had 2 years on, and he gave me, you're going to go through this, you're going to go through this, you're going to experience that, you're going to experience this. And then after he was all done, he goes, you have anything to say? I go, yeah. I said, what if I don't experience any of that? He goes, oh, well, that's normal too. I go,
well, that's
right
just
on.
it, man. Everybody's got different coping mechanisms. Everybody's trauma affects everybody differently, no matter what it is. So what Tank went through or what Greg went through, right, doesn't make that any more traumatizing than the person who sees the dead burnt body in a car or does CPR on a child. Trauma is trauma. And that's the big thing that we have to look at as well, because a lot of young cops think because it was a dead body, they can't talk to somebody who was in a shooting because, oh my God,
it's not worth it.
Right.
Yeah.
They compare their traumas. Trauma is neutral across the board. It affects everybody differently. We cannot be putting a shooting and a dead body on the same. They're on the same plane.
Well,
we can't.
And
Do you
it's
understand what
not
I'm
just
saying?
the officer; it's the people around him. Because I had a roommate, a former roommate at the time, that he and I were actually fairly close. But after my first shooting, he wouldn't talk to me.
You guys want to weigh in, man? Jump on in, man. You want to weigh in on this because I mean, there's a lot of experience behind us.
Yeah,
that
I know.
Really.
But he wouldn't talk to me, and I finally pulled him off the side. I said, "Dude, what's up?" And he couldn't explain. I said, listen, I knew what it was because he used to always call me killer. Always. That's all he called me. And I don't know where he got that name from, but that's what he called me. And all of a sudden he couldn't talk to me. I said, dude, you've been calling me killer for like the past 2 years. I said, just keep calling me killer. I said, it doesn't bother me. I said, that's who you are. That's who I am. I said, let's not let this affect our relationship,
Right.
something that I was involved in that you can't deal with, because the people around you can't deal with it either.
And that's another thing. People start
Yeah,
treating you a
but
little
you're-
differently. They do.
You know, his compartmentalization, that's no lie with him, because before all this stuff happened, and I'm talking about the shooting, the situation with his first wife and all of that, he was like the life of the party. You know, very, you know.
So
he's
you're
real-
saying he's not anymore?
No, I'm saying that he used to be far more outgoing, far more, he was a life of the party. But then all this stuff happened, right?
Age.
And, well, he got a little older, but he wasn't that old. And
age. I thought you said AIDS. Yeah, well, that did affect things.
That'll do it every time.
So let's slow down here.
That one night in Bangkok.
I knew him from his first day on the job. So after his shooting had happened and all the physical problems that came with that and the recovery and whatnot, he was in, admittedly, I'm not saying anything he hasn't talked about publicly, a very dark place. All right, so I had moved away by that time when all this was happening, and I hadn't seen him in a while. Got the call, hey, you need to come out here. I came out there, and I didn't recognize him. I recognized him physically, but mentally, me and another good friend of ours went to his house, and he sat there on the couch. And I'll never forget this as long as I live. He sat there on the couch. He had a walker. He was using a walker at the time, which I don't know, because we didn't talk about it. Like maybe that was something that, when the last time we had seen him, it had been athletic Mongo, the football player Mongo. We'd played in Pride Bowls together and all that. Now we were seeing Mongo who was vulnerable, Mongo who was wounded. Don't know if that was it or not. But he sat there we were there for 2 days, and he sat on the couch almost the entire time and literally didn't say like 5 words to us. And I mean, we've been in all this stuff together. We've ran around, we've drank, we've done everything together, right? And then
because he probably had 2 hookers in a closet that were dying to get out. And he didn't want to. It was an awkward moment.
It was very awkward because there's a guy going like, dude, we know everything about one another. We've done everything together. What, you can't talk to me? And he was so compartmentalized that he had gone inside that compartment, locked the door, tossed the key away, and for 2 days there was no getting to him. And me and our other partner, when we left, we were like, dude, we don't even know what to do. We've never experienced anything like this. What do we do? We made the wrong call. It was like, I'll just let it go, and he'll be fine. He'll work his way out of it, because what else can you do? And obviously he changed back over time. But I told him this like a week or so ago. We had a conversation like this. Like, dude, you used to be the guy that wear the ball cap on your head with 2 beer cans on the side, and 2 Schlitz malt liquor talls, whatever, big beers.
That's trauma in itself, brother.
that was a challenge.
Definitely the next morning. Yeah.
I'm exaggerating. He'd have, he was the life of the party, but then that happened, and all of a sudden, boom, he's very withdrawn, very, he's not the Mongo that you see today then, but he's a lot different the Mongo today than the Mongo of those days.
But back when Mongo said that he doesn't know if it was wrong, maybe he's wrong. I don't think he's wrong. I think, and I go back to Sideshow, everyone handles things differently. I'm very similar, for whatever the reason you say that a lot about me and Mongo, but I'm very similar to Mongo. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that I'm against talking about it. I've had to talk about some stuff when I had to go through the shootings I was involved with. I went and did the proper peer support and all that, but I found that I handled it better myself because of past things in my history that we've talked about.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that then we should assume that all officers are on that same playing field. That doesn't make him necessarily bulletproof. He's just able to cope with that specific thing that happened. There may be something that happens where Mongo's like, oh, wow, over my head, I need help on this.
Right.
Maybe not. But to not have things in proper places, that's the problem, to say that every officer is the same. Because I go back with Sideshow says, so you give a CPR to a little baby, well, that baby passes away. That is horrible. Well, then, so this same officer doesn't want to speak in front of Officer Stevens because he took care of 2 terrorists. Well, right. Well, his is much, much bigger. Well, yeah, probably nationally it is, but the circumstances and the things that you went through, that's really horrible what you had to go through.
Your mind's still traumatized.
That's it. So I think what we have to really say is, what we're trying to take care is the different variables, and to understand there are variables,
Which makes
you human.
Yeah, and
that's
plus,
the human aspect.
That also makes post-traumatic stress and on-the-job mental health and peer support so complex, because we process things differently as human beings. And since we process things differently as human beings, our treatments are different. Our ways we approach things are different.
One thing has to be the same. One thing has to be, and we've learned this from you, is that when you're riding around in that car with somebody day in and day out, or you're hanging out with somebody a lot and you're getting to know them and whatnot, you have to be ready and able to call bullshit. When you know bullshit's happening, when you know they're having a bad day, when you know that the bubble over's getting close and whatnot, you gotta say, dude, you all right? And when you hear that, yeah, I'm fine. No, you're not. I can see it, and I'm telling you, you're not. What can we do? We have to be able to call bullshit and be ready to step up.
Once again, there's a way to approach that.
And there's a way to do it right.
Because everyone's different. It depends. Like, if you do that to me, I'll be like, I think I'll handle this. Brian.
That's right. Because
you know what I'm saying.
Right, but right.
You
know,
because I'm listening to you just talk right now, and I'm like, man, if you did that, and if we're in a patrol car and you started, I would feel like I'm under the pressure, and I'd be like, dude, I'm just going to lock myself back up, and that's what's, and 12, I 100% agree with you, okay, but our approach is so different in every aspect, because you got to feel out the person, you got to know who he is, you got to feel out what his mood is like, because hey, I could be in a real shitty mood, and you know what, I'm going to bite your head off for just offering help. So there's a lot of
there are, like I said, we could have gone into those. The bottom line there is we have to be there. We have to be.
We have to make it an opportunity.
And you can't be afraid to say something to the person. If you're seeing something, you can't be afraid.
Absolutely.
You're certainly correct that there are all those variables, and some people you can come at direct. Like him, I could come at him straight like that, or he can do the same for me. Like, dude, what's wrong with you? And that's the way we communicate. You and I might communicate different. You and I would communicate different. But you have to, if you're in on this, and especially in law enforcement or with the veterans, you have to be ready to step up. You can't just say, yeah, you'll be all right, because we've done that in the past. That's how we handled it in the past. That's how my dad handled it. No, he was all right. He was in the war. He fought. He was in World War II.
And that's something we got to change. And that's why last year we had 237 suicides.
Yeah.
This year we're looking to cap that, but we have to stop. I mean, this is what we do, and this is why we do. We want to raise awareness. We got to bring better programs and resources. And you have so many resources out there that are just itching to help, that are well vetted. They're great resources. And, when you talk about couch therapy, right? Maybe not everybody wants to be on a couch. Mongo works out, right? Some people, you got Heroes on the Water. Take some of these guys fishing. You got, Save the Brave. You got guys that are climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. Some of the vets that are going out there for stress relieving. That's therapy. Walking the bridge every month. That's therapy. You don't have to sit on a couch with some, some pad and pen. So, once again, we got to watch. Every therapy is different as well.
Yeah.
So,
can I say something?
No.
If you raise your hand.
Can we? Yeah, well, I want to get you. Why don't we take a commercial break and get Greg up here and talk about his story?
Yeah,
let's do that. Let's do that.
All right.
So this is 99% Radio Network. We're going to take a break. Coming back with Officer Greg Stevens with the Garland Police Department, and hear his story right after this.
We all know that safety comes first, but you don't want to look like your parents are sending you on a bike ride. Here at Micro DOT Helmets, we're focused on lightweight DOT certified helmets that protect and still look great, so you don't have to look like that mushroom from Super Mario. If you do have an accident, we'll ship you a fresh new helmet. Real lifetime warranty, only at Micro DOT Helmets, a veteran-owned business.
We come from all walks of life. We don't need a reason to ride, or even a destination. It's not what or where we ride that defines us. because no matter where we're headed, it's what happens along the way that makes us who we are. We may not know where the ride will take us, but one thing's for sure. With the Law Tigers, you never ride alone. If you're injured in a motorcycle accident, call 1-800-LAW-TIGERS, America's motorcycle lawyers.
Come on in and take a trip down memory lane in Garland, Texas at TLC on the Lake, located at 4881 Bass Pro Drive. Step in and enjoy our made-from-scratch meals. It'll make you feel like you're back in Grandma's kitchen. Our friendly staff is always ready to serve you and take care of your every need. Enjoy your meal on our outside deck while overlooking the beautiful views of Lake Ray Hubbard. If you're out with the family or hosting a corporate event, visit TLC on the Lake or give us a call at 972-203-8512.
Hey, welcome back to the award-winning 99% Radio Network here in the Fishbowl, broadcasting live from Fishbowl Radio Network studios here in Globe Life Park, the heart of the entertainment district in Arlington, Texas. Man, we really shot right out of the gate on this one.
We went deep,
and the conversation is a conversation that really needs to be had. So, if you know a veteran, a law enforcement officer, if somebody's battling, please share the show with them, because we have about, like I said, we have over 150 years of law enforcement experience sitting at the table right now. We have guys that have been involved in multiple different aspects and different incidents throughout their law enforcement careers. And you may identify with something that maybe one of these guys can bring to light on how you can mentally heal yourself. So I want to welcome Greg Stevens with retired now, Garland PD, and Dave Swaby with Guns and Hoses, right?
Correct.
All right, welcome, gentlemen.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Oh, thank you. Greg, your story, and I was reading it from Police One magazine. I was just picking it up, but I know me and you have talked, and there was a lot of things that I didn't know, and mental awareness and preparedness and everything you did. What is that? What do you attribute all this stuff to, so you could be sitting here today and survive this incident?
Well, training is the key, and preparation is the key to everything we do in life, for that matter, not just law enforcement. I get the opportunity to do quite a lot of public speaking and some training all over the country. Of course, it's been a little shut down since this pandemic thing, but looks like it's going to start opening up again, and I really look forward to that, because that's really where my heart is. I get to meet some really interesting folks, a lot of law enforcement, military people, and share my story and talk about that training and preparation and so on. We all need to be reminded of that. I don't care if you're a 10-minute police officer or a 25-year guy. We all need that reminder that we need to be prepared, we need to be trained, and we need to be ready. I often say, and this is really true of the incident there at the Culwell Center, we don't get to choose the moment as law enforcement officers. The moment chooses us. Right. And if you're not prepared for when the moment chooses you, you're gonna have some dire consequences probably. So it's all about being prepared and that preparation.
When you say preparation, right? Take us back to the Culwell Center that day, right? Because you were mentally prepared prior to the terrorists even getting to the site, correct?
Oh, yeah. Well, I got there about 1:30 in the afternoon. My assignment was actually...
A little closer here.
Okay. My assignment was actually from 2 to 7 or something, I think is what we were signed up for, right?
Just I want to stop you real quick. I just want to bring everybody up to speed. For those that you don't know, on May 3rd of 2015, 2 terrorists attacked the Curtis Culwell Event Center in Garland, Texas, over a political cartoon. What was it? A rally event?
It's called the Draw the Profit Art Contest, and a freedom of speech right-winger lady named Pamela Geller out of New York decided that we needed to have that in response to the Charlie Hebdo attack in France and some other attacks in the Netherlands. nobody would produce these cartoons that depicted the Prophet Muhammad, which is offensive to the Muslim community.
Right.
And she said, our freedom of speech and expression is being taken away because if anybody reproduced these cartoons or anything in publication or anything, they were being attacked or threatened and those kind of things. So she just decided we'll just have an in-your-face kind of deal, and she picked Garland because we had a kind of a controversial event there that involved a Muslim group here in Garland that kind of stirred the public in Garland. That's a whole other story, but and that's how it ended up in Garland, Texas, of all places.
So it's the two terrorists were ISIS related. They were from Iran or Iraq or
well, they lived here in the States.
They lived here in the States.
Yeah, they were both living in Phoenix at the time.
Okay.
One of them, a guy named Nadir Sufi, he was actually born in Garland and lived here till he was about 3 years old, and then moved to Pakistan with his father. Mother and father split up, and he was raised in Pakistan. Came back to the United States in the late 90s.
Okay.
Kind of reconnected with his mother. The other guy was from Philadelphia, I believe it was, and he moved to Phoenix. His story is he came from kind of a bad background, and he moved to Phoenix, became involved in the Muslim faith to kind of get away from a bad crowd.
Right.
That didn't exactly work out for him, but anyway, but they both were in contact with the ISIS head honchos
right.
in Syria. Matter of fact, just before the attack, the last tweet that Elton Simpson sent out was to one of the captains or whatever in Syria about paying homage to them, and me and the bro with me is how he described it, are going to make war.
This was a suicide mission from the get-go, right?
Yeah, I don't think they had any expectation to leave or walk away from the thing. But I think their intention, they had 6 guns and about 1,500 rounds of ammunition with them. So killing an old cop standing there wasn't the plan. It was to get up there to the building and
do as much damage as he could.
Have a mass murder occur.
Now, when we talk about the pre-plan, the mindset that you were in when you were at the convention center, and you see this nowadays, and this really gets me, and I because everybody gets complacent, right? A lot of cops get complacent, and I see this, before the pandemic, you watch cops at the New Year's Eve, the ball drop. Probably one of the biggest places where a terrorist could hit, and do the most damage. And you see cops sitting up against the wall, on their phones. And, they're really not taking in the crowd. They're really, because they think, just because I'm on patrol, I'm in uniform, no one's going to do anything. And we get complacent, and we never know when that moment's going to happen. So you guys, Garland PD, gave you guys an update of what kind of convention it was and what you were pretty much could have to face, right?
Yeah. Well, here's a kind of a funny story about that. I worked in the traffic unit. First of all, I retired. I had 40 years, 3 months, and 9 days on the job when I retired from Garland. And I did the entirety of that in a uniform on the street. Not because I was, and this may be arguable by some people, not because I was too stupid to do anything else, but I just chose not to. I chose not to because that's what being a policeman was for me. Being in a uniform on the street, in direct contact with the public. That's what I love doing. That's what made it all work for me. And that's part of how I survived a 40-year career in law enforcement, because I did what I loved doing. And I was maybe not intentionally smart enough, but I was smart enough not to go do something else and walk away from something I loved doing. As a motor officer for nearly 28 of my 40 years, I loved that motorcycle. I loved riding that motorcycle. And it was heartbreaking to me when the time came before I retired that it was time to step off the motorcycle, and I've continued my career in a traffic car. It was that was a big day for me, and that was tough to do because I loved being on that motorcycle. But here's a funny story. So I worked in the traffic unit for the last 33 years of my career. And that's a lot of trauma. We were fatality investigators. They
Yeah.
called us in the middle of the night all the time. I was on SWAT. I was a negotiator on the SWAT team. I was on SWAT for about 22 of those years of my career. So my phone rang in the middle of the night a lot. So there's a toll you pay when you get awakened in the middle of the night over and over again to have to go do stuff.
Right.
And it's not going and doing pleasant stuff usually.
Right, they're not waking you up and going, "Hey, you sleeping well?"
Yeah, how you feeling?
Just want to make sure you know
Yeah.
everything's good.
So, but anyway, I loved what I was doing, and we had a lot of overtime available to us in the traffic unit. So, but every now and then I'd kind of troll through the patrol office there, the squad room, and see what was up on the overtime board. They would post that stuff. I rarely signed up for anything because I had so much available to me. I wanted the patrol guys to have opportunity to get some of that,
Right.
a little bit of that gravy too. That's typical of cops.
Yeah.
We all work extra,
You have to.
And so anyway, I'd walked through there a number of times, and there was one spot open on this overtime assignment, and it was the Draw the Profit Art Contest at the Culwell Center. I had no earthly idea what that was. No idea what
I think
that
it's
was.
some cartoon thing. Hey,
So
you know.
I'm walking through there. I've walked through there several times. It was getting kind of down to the 11th hour. Nobody had signed up for it, and it was a Sunday afternoon, so I signed up for 5 hours of easy overtime. That's what I signed up for. I'm thinking, I want to direct some traffic at the Culwell Center. How hard can this be, right?
Right.
So I did. I signed up. A couple of days later, I get a page because I was team leader for our negotiators at the time, and I'm called to a meeting up in one of our meeting rooms about this Draw the Profit Art Contest. And I go to this meeting, and it's just SWAT. It's meeting. And I'm listening to that. And finally, I had to nudge the guy next to me and say, "Hey, what the heck is this thing? What are we talking about here?" I had no idea. I was clueless. And then I found out what it was, and I thought, oh, well, that's different. So some of our guys had spent a lot of time preparing for this because we found out in February we were going to do this in May, and that planning began in February.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, that's how I ended up there to begin with, was signing up for 5 hours of easy overtime on a Sunday afternoon. But,
Little did you know.
Yes, I did not. Yeah, I knew little when I signed up. I can promise you that. But anyway, not that I wouldn't have signed up anyway. That was just me. But when we were talking about earlier, I'd gotten there early. I got there at 1:30 or so, and met with the lieutenant on the scene. And he said, "Hey, I got an easy spot for you. It's over there at the west parking lot. It's away from the main entrance and
Shade tree.
And all you're going to do is secure the lot. We're going to bring in the dignitaries through your spot. We'll give you a heads up when that's going to happen." We had countdowns. It was very well organized and very well done. And I was stationed there, and there was an unarmed security guard from the school district that was standing, that had the opportunity to be assigned there too. So we're standing there together. Well, I had my car parked back away from the entrance to this thing a ways, and it's about a 40-foot wide driveway, and I had it blocked with 4-foot tall cones, those tall skinny cones, except for if you're looking out of the driveway, on the left side of the driveway, I had about a 10-foot opening, but just big enough for a car to come in and go out of. And I was standing basically in that opening most of the day, somewhere in the driveway.
Were you getting a lot of vehicle traffic coming in and out?
No, there's
No.
nothing coming in
Nothing
and out. That was the
coming.
whole idea.
Oh, okay.
It was very limited. There was going to be Pamela Geller and her security team was going to come through there. They had a guest speaker named Geert Wilders from the Netherlands was going to be there with his security team. A caterer was going to go through there, and that was it. And they were going to come and go, and I wasn't supposed to let anybody else in, and there wouldn't be anybody else going out. So anyway, we stood there and visited, me and the security guy, and just kind of kept an eye on things. And cars came and went. A couple of them pulled up and asked directions and asked questions, which was okay, and we got them where they needed to be. The dignitaries all came in. Everything went smooth. As a matter of fact, later in the day, Mr. Wilders and his security team left. Of course, the caterer came and went. So Pamela Geller was still in the facility when this happened. But
Was there still people in the facility that were coming there, like guests for the art exhibit?
yeah, they were, but they weren't coming in where I was. Okay. They were all cordoned down a long walkway, and it was very specifically done so that they had to park in a kind of a remote lot and walk a pretty good distance, and that was to give our officers that we had posted all up and down there opportunity to look at them and kind of check and see what they're carrying, what they're not carrying, if they look suspicious, before they could even get up to the building. And then at the building, they had metal detectors and people screening them going in. It was very well organized, very well planned. The guy that was kind of the head honcho of that thing, I think, did a fabulous job on preparing for this potentially dangerous event.
Right.
And and that was a process too. It's kind of interesting. What he proposed initially, the administration, I think, kind of scratched their head and kind of laughed at him, like, we're not spending that kind of we hadn't got those.
There were
kind
some
of
people that were
resources.
downplaying.
Yeah. So
downplaying
there was it's like buying a used car, right? They're going to ask a lot more than they're willing to take for the car, right? And then it becomes a negotiation. But they came up with a pretty reasonable plan, under the circumstances. Tank was talking about after the fact.
Right.
That's where we might have stumped our toe just a little bit. We figured out that after the attack, we were maybe not as prepared as we thought we were.
Well, hindsight, and you're always going to Monday morning quarterback. You're always going to find little mistakes that were made, but you can't beat stuff up over them. Unless they would drop balls in the beginning, there were things that should have been taken care of.
And he'll go on the story, but the biggest thing is when you're setting up a 2,000 meter radius bubble. 2,000 meters.
Wow. Now
circular.
Was the threat? Was you say you started preparing this in February? This incident happened in May. All right. So was there a credible threat that was passed on to you? Was communication forthcoming, or were they just giving you drabs, bits and pieces of
here's some interesting things about that. Yeah. FBI was telling us, there's a lot of chatter on the internet about it, but nothing credible, any of those kind of things. However, later, long after the incident, I became acquainted with and friends with an intel supervisor for the Texas Department of Public Safety, and that was his job. He was was a civilian employee. He's left there now. He works for an outfit in D.C. now. But anyway, he was a journalist by trade and did all this intel work. And he told me, he says, there was tons of stuff going on the internet. The FBI kind of downplayed it to us, from what I understand. Now, I wasn't in on these meetings, so I don't want to talk out of turn here. But this is just kind of information I've been able to gather after the fact. But there was plenty of chatter about this thing, and it was obviously on the radar of lots of folks, which made it that much more potentially dangerous.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I want to touch on. If this same event was happening within the city of Dallas, in the city itself, or the city of Fort Worth, or if it was a big city, would security have been maybe different? Would there would have been more eyes on this instead of saying, "Well, this is in Garland, Texas. What could happen?"
Well, I don't know about that. You got to remember, Garland isn't a little town.
No, it's not.
Garland's we're in the probably in the 275,000.
No, I'm not downplaying that at all. I'm just saying people turn around and go, "Oh, it's Garland, Texas." It's not the cities. It's not they don't look at it that way.
But something you alluded to earlier in the show about it probably won't happen here. That mentality is that's like a give up, right? Think about the little church in Sutherland Springs, Texas.
Yeah.
26 people were killed
in
Sutherland Springs, Texas. And it's a little hole in the wall place. I mean, it was just a small place, over half the congregation, right? So it doesn't have to be in a big city. It doesn't have to be in a medium city. It can be It can happen anywhere.
Anywhere.
And that preparation is necessary everywhere.
Right, for every law enforcement officer.
Right.
And I think that's what saved you. Is it?
Oh, absolutely.
So, continue.
Hey, I'm
I'm
no super ninja guy. Trust me, I'm just a guy. You call 911 and I'm liable to show up. I'm one of those guys, and love doing it. But anyway, that Sunday afternoon, I showed up about 2:00. We stood around there forever and ever. Answered a few questions. Everything was going really smooth. And then about 7:15, I guess it was, the radio crackles, and I hear somebody say on the radio, "Well, it looks like it just ended." And so I'm kind of thinking, wow, that's good. And this was kind of really uneventful of all,
Right.
So
but you got your overtime.
That's good. We were prepared, but doesn't look like that was all, we may have been overexcited about this thing. So I'm standing there in my same spot, been there all day. Now, you talked about seeing guys at these events and so on their phones, and it'd have been real easy for me to be sitting in my air-conditioned squad car looking at, YouTube on my phone or something, and telling the security guard, "Hey, if you need something, holler at me."
Right, because
you know what I mean?
Yeah, because that happens so
you
often.
see it a lot.
And we all fall into that. Everybody's guilty of it.
That's that
we all fall into
complacency.
it. Yes.
That's that complacency you talked about. And there's just no place for it in police work. And like you said, it doesn't matter how big a city you're in. If you're wearing a uniform, you're a policeman.
Right.
And they're the same throughout the country and the world.
Yep.
You're a policeman. So anyway, about that time, now 5 minutes or so later, I'm standing there in my spot, and I see a car coming from my left, and I'm looking out the driveway. So I'm kind of on the left side of the driveway there in that opening. And I see this little black car come up. There's a little bit of a curve to the road. He pulls up, and he pulls partially into the driveway. And
was he pulling in at a high rate of speed, or just
not a high rate of speed? But he pulled in, and he was parallel with the road, and he pulls to the opposite side of the driveway, all the way to the other side of the driveway, and he's parallel with the road, and he's partially in the road and partially in the driveway, and the cones are up there to his right. And I thought, that's weird. It struck me as odd.
Let me ask something. As a motor cop, was it weird for a motor cop? Would it have been the same weirdness for some regular cop that really not into all the traffic laws or whatever? You think a different cop without the same training maybe have looked at it a little differently?
Well, let me give you a comparison. So the security guard that was on duty with me, right? He sees the same thing that I'm seeing. Now, we both had to testify in Phoenix on a co-conspirator case some months later. And he testified to this, but he told me this personally. We've had a number of conversations. He and I kind of got linked together based on that. But he told me this personally. When he saw that, he was seeing exactly the same thing that I was seeing, right? Okay. Now, he was behind me and to my left, and I never saw him until well after the fact. But anyway, he told me that when he saw that car pull up there, he started immediately walking toward the car because he was assuming that there was somebody going to ask directions or ask about parking or ask a question of some sort. And for me, as an experienced police officer, and I think this should hold true for pretty much every officer, this didn't have anything to do with my traffic enforcement job. This is just a policeman being on the job and paying attention. For me, it was like, that's not normal. That's weird, because if he wanted to ask me a question, he needed to stop where I'm standing, because I'm not really inclined to walk all the way down there to answer his question. He can he can back up, he can do whatever he wants to do. But so I'm standing there watching the back of that car, right? I can see the passenger side pretty clear. I can see the back of the car clear. Driver's side, not so much. And it's a little Chevy Cobalt, little two-door car. So while I'm standing there looking at the back of that car, thinking that was unusual, and here's paying attention in briefings, had out-of-state tags on it, had Arizona tags, and knew it was an Arizona tag. Now that's traffic training because it had the cactus on it. That's how I knew that, right?
Right.
One of those dumb things that you learn that is seemingly meaningless, right? But that didn't really have any bearing on me because there'd been a lot of cars there with out-of-state tags I had noticed.
But this definitely sparked your interest.
Right, but that was something that we had talked about in the briefings prior to, the SWAT briefing and the subsequent briefing after that. That to be aware of out-of-state license plates. So this car has this out-of-state plate. Well, while I'm standing there looking at it, both doors open simultaneously. And like I said, I can see the passenger side better than I can the other side. And the next thing I see is a leg step out of the door wearing some kind of a dark-colored clothing. A leg step out of the door, and then the next thing I see is the barrel of a rifle coming up in my direction.
Wow.
Okay?
And how close are you, approximately?
30 feet, between 30 35 feet.
So you're
maybe.
not far at all. You're not far at all.
No, 10 yards, give
Yeah.
or take, right? So I see this happening. Now let's go back to the security guard. Here's that perception thing. Here's that thing that we were talking about earlier. So he's seeing the exact same thing that I'm seeing. And he told me this personally, and once again, he testified to this in court. He said when he saw that barrel, that rifle coming up, his thought was, this is the stupidest prank in the world. I can't believe that guy is this stupid that he's doing that, because that Garland policeman's going to kill that guy. Well, now me and the security guard finally ended up on the same page, right? Because I was going to stop that guy because I perceived the threat. I didn't think it was a prank. The idea of prank never entered my mind.
Right.
I see the barrel of a rifle coming up. It's time to go.
No joke.
Right, yeah. So when I see that barrel of the rifle starting to come up, I immediately engage him. And I hadn't been to rifle school, so I wasn't authorized to carry a rifle. Everybody else at the event, I think, had a rifle. All the patrol guys that were rifle trained, they all had the rifles deployed from the get-go. The reason I hadn't been to rifle school is I had a knee that needed to be replaced, and I just couldn't physically do the school at the time.
Right.
I just wasn't able to do it. And I was on a motor most of the time, so I couldn't carry a rifle anyway back then.
Right.
So, but all I had with me, my only weapon was my Glock 21 45 caliber pistol. So I see this barrel of the rifle coming up. I immediately engage him. I drew my weapon.
Now, these guys see you. They have to see you, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You got a
Yeah,
marked
yeah.
police car. They got to see you. They're 30 feet away. When they're getting out of their car and with a rifle in hand, they know you're in uniform. You're there.
Yeah, they saw me. And I can't confirm this because I don't have any hard intel to tell me this. But I can't believe those guys drove from Phoenix, Arizona and came around the corner and saw the very first entrance to that thing and said, oh, let's go here. They drove around, kind of cased the thing and figured it out. And then what they figured out was that was the only entrance. There was only one armed police officer. Every other entrance had officers with rifles and multiple officers and just a much stronger show of force. So I'm sure they drove by and when they came back, they realized, well, we've got one armed policeman and one unarmed security guard, and heck, the policeman's 100 years old. How hard can this be, right?
Right.
I mean, that's kind of...
Little did they know.
Yeah, which is pretty solid logic, and
Yeah.
and their intel was somewhat correct. So it was the least fortified part of the whole event, right? So anyway, this barrel of the rifle comes up. I drew my weapon. I don't remember drawing my weapon. That's a training thing. But I had it in my hand in a hurry. And I immediately engaged the passenger. To this day, I can't tell you who fired the first round, whether it was him or me. I really don't know. I don't remember that. And it's interesting, people in this room have all been involved in police shootings or police-involved shootings. There are things that you remember and things that you don't remember.
Right.
And sometimes it takes a little while to remember something that you didn't remember initially. And there's all kinds of effects that it can have on you. Some of them, some people have all of them. Some of them have none of them. Some of them have a few of them. I don't know whether you're familiar with retired Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman. He's a kind of a quintessential police and law enforcement trainer. Ex-military guy. He wrote On Combat, the book On Combat, and also a number of other books. Okay. But On Combat is a great law enforcement resource. I would recommend everybody, if you can get a copy of it, you probably get it at a library if you don't want to buy one.
Library, they still have those?
Yeah, yeah. You'll see many policemen in them, but anyway. That's a great book because
what's it called?
On Combat.
On Combat.
And it's by retired Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman. And Dave's an interesting guy all on himself. But anyway, in his book, he describes a lot of these things. And he talks about PTSD, and he talks about, and it's fascinating. He was a professor of psychology at West Point at one point in his career. So this is a credible guy.
Smart man.
Yeah. And so what's interesting is there was a number of things that happened to me that I read about in his book. And there were some of those things that didn't happen to me, and it's pretty fascinating. I did experience auditory exclusion, and I don't know whether for your audience, that's where under really high stress, you don't really hear things.
Right.
And it's all real muffled. So here I've all of a sudden find myself in a gun battle with two guys with AK-47s, and they're firing rounds, and I'm firing rounds out of my .45 caliber Glock, and it sounds like muffled automatic weapon fire to me, and I can really feel and see my gun functioning a lot more than I can hear it. I know it's working, and I know everything's okay, but it was weird. So go to the range.
Now, did you have cover?
No.
No cover.
I'm standing in the middle I'm in no man's land. So, and there was no cover to get to.
Right.
My car was too far away, and if I'd have tried to do that, I probably wouldn't have had much of a chance. I knew it was time to engage. But what was interesting about it, after all that, you go to the range and you get two guys shooting AK-47s next to you, and then shoot about 14 rounds out of your Glock, and then see how good you can hear if you're not wearing hearing protection.
Yeah.
When that whole incident was over, and I got to a place of cover and safety, you could whisper in my ear, and I could hear everything that you said. It's a weird phenomenon, but it's okay. It's usual. It's normal.
Right.
But in any case, this guy comes up. I engage him. I fired several rounds on him.
You were talking about passenger, right?
Right. That was Elton Simpson. He was the passenger. Now, when he got out, and I didn't really recognize all this when he first got out, but I know after the fact, they were wearing black, like BDU kind of uniform kind of stuff. They had soft body armor on. They were wearing load-bearing vests with multiple magazines in their load-bearing vests, and they also had these little backpacks on. Something else we talked about in briefings, too, was IEDs, body-borne or vehicle-borne.
Right.
So anyway, I engage. I fire several rounds on him. He falls. He drops his rifle. It's within proximity, but he falls to the ground. He doesn't have his rifle in his hands anymore, and I know I have another. I saw the driver getting out, and by the time I acquire him, he's towards the back of the car at this point.
So now he's coming around the back of the car towards you.
No, he's going down the side of the car. He's headed toward the back of the car.
Oh, okay.
So, and he's got his rifle up, and he's shooting at the security guard. And the security guard is headed for the Mexican border.
Because he's not armed.
He's not armed. He has nothing. There's a tree there, and trust me, it would have to have been a much bigger tree for he or I to get cover behind it.
I get it.
It was a little tree. And so he's just running for his life, bless his heart. He had no way to defend himself or anything. So when I acquired the driver, I was able to turn. I fired several rounds on him. He fell to the ground and dropped his rifle, similarly to what happened to the passenger. He seemed to be temporarily, at least, out of the fight. I reacquired the passenger again. I closed on him, and I fired several more rounds on him. He was laying on the ground. He had his hands up near his throat and his chest, and he was moving around. And he didn't have his rifle in his hand, but I didn't know what he was trying to do.
IED,
I'm thinking,
whatever, it could be anything.
Is he pulling a pin? Is he trying to push a button? I didn't know what he was doing. So he's still a viable threat.
Yep.
Turns out he had a 9mm pistol up there, too. I didn't ever see that. But anyway, fired several more rounds on him. He quit wiggling around so much. I was still concerned about the driver. Reacquired him, and he hadn't done much. He'd kind of pushed himself up, slumped back down, and he was just kind of not doing much. But once again, I was concerned about the IED aspect of this thing. Had a couple more rounds in my mag. I went ahead and, in the interest of thoroughness, emptied my mag, finished that one off, reloaded, Very, and this is where that training comes in. I didn't have to think about reloading. I didn't have to think about how I did it. When I'm on the range, I really make every effort. Every time I have to reload, I reload like somebody's shooting at me.
Well, see, that's the importance of it because, I know back when I was in the academy and I actually doing those yearly trainings at the range, not like a SWAT cop, because SWAT takes a lot of their job takes their job serious.
But you don't reload like a SWAT cop?
No.
The wheel gun back
Actually,
I started with one.
That's right. I had a wheel gun.
Yeah.
I got the speed loader into the. But no,
We had loops.
huh?
We had loops. We didn't
But
even
what
have
were you
loops.
saying? But you said not like a SWAT guy.
Well, because a lot of patrol cops, especially when I was back in the day, they wouldn't take the range seriously. They wouldn't. A lot of them would take the range as an inconvenience driving to the Bronx because they had to drive. They had to go over a bridge. They had to pay a toll. It sucked. It was Rodman's Neck over in the Bronx. It was full of mosquitoes. It was just a horrible, horrible place to just go out and shoot. And back then, cops didn't want to take it serious. They were like, it's a day off. I'm gonna go clean my gun for the first time in a year.
And the worse than that is when they're at the range, before they were taught the right way, if they're using speed loaders for a revolver or a magazine for the automatics, when they ejected the magazine, they'd put it back in the holder, pull the next one out, instead of just throwing that shit to the ground.
Yep.
Like
Right.
you should.
Absolutely.
Because they're not training the way they're going to engage.
Right.
But they're mentally, they're training their bodies to do shit the wrong way.
And
They have to be taught the right way.
Good example
That
of-
shit goes to the ground.
Muscle memory is big because when you say you don't remember things, when I got into my shooting, it wasn't until about a day or two later that I realized I came up from a crouch position in a two-hand. I always thought I would end up getting to a shooting and I'd be like Mr. Ghetto,
Because it looks cool.
and and harding like a bitch, But I came up with a two-hand stance, and I was like, my partner said, he goes, "You look like you were just coming out of the range," and I'm like, muscle memory. I never ever in my wildest dreams thought I would fire my weapon like that, So when you bring up guys put their, they don't want to drop their mag in the mud, so they'll put it in their belt. You're training like that, so guess what you're going to do in a firefight?
Good example of that is FBI had several of their agents killed in a shootout. I believe it was in Florida. And this is many years ago, and they found empty shell casings in the pockets of the FBI agents.
That was
because
cleaning the brass.
Yeah, they dumped them. They were revolver, and they put it in their pocket, so they wouldn't have to police the brass later.
That was the same with the CHP officers in Newhall out in California. The four guys that were killed during that shootout out there did the same thing. They performed like they trained.
Absolutely.
Don't let that shit drop on the ground.
See, but when I was saying SWAT when they train like they're really out there on the street. You know what I'm saying?
We always say your highest performance in training will be your lowest performance in combat. So
Yeah.
wherever your highest performance is in training, that's where you're going to be at in combat.
Right. So
You'll hear
everybody
that a
should
lot.
play, train like you would in a real situation because
And I know Greg needs to get back to the story, but I was in traffic. I was lucky because I'm a firearms instructor, so a couple of times our LT would let us go out to the range. So I knew everyone's shooting capability quite. I was quite familiar with it.
Yeah, just try to stay right in front.
I was quite familiar with everyone's shooting ability. So I knew Steven's ability on shooting. His ability was really, really smooth. What I did notice about Stevens is, it's going to sound funny, so I don't know how else to say it, but he's not going to move a whole lot of places really quickly. Like he's not going to like turn a corner like an NFL guy and pill. But when he planted and decided to shoot, it's inside the box, every time. So I never had to worry about his fundamentals and I know that's why it turned out the way it did too. So, yeah.
So when you engage the passenger, right? He goes down. You engage the driver. He goes down, right? You end up combat reloading, right? And now you're advancing towards the vehicle.
No, I had engaged both the driver and the passenger twice, and I fired 14 rounds at it. That was a mag. Holds 13 on the Glock 21. I had 14 rounds. And like I said, when I reloaded, you know, just like we would train at the range, you know, weapon up, eyes down range, drop my mag. I don't care where it goes.
Right.
While I'm doing that and I'm dropping one magazine, I'm already pulling the other one out. I know right where it is. I don't have to feel for it or any of that kind of stuff.
Keeping your eyes downrange.
My eyes are downrange. Yeah. I reload and recharge my weapon and get a second sight picture, and now I'm ready to move. Right.
Right.
So,
in case there's a third
Right.
guy in the car
You
or
don't know
whatever,
what
you never know.
You don't know what you got.
We could tell what he's doing. He's alternating targets according to
Which
priority,
is-
which was something he was taught. And
Yeah,
that's
which is
important.
amazing tactics on your part. I mean,
Well, and we had gotten to do some multiple target training not too awful long before that. It was something that we didn't do a whole lot of. I noticed the other day I went to qualify, and that was part of our training was shooting multiple targets.
Multiple targets.
And that's a direct result of what happened at the Culwell Center. I can promise you that, because I don't know that we've ever really had to have that, but everybody ought to be mindful of that. There could be multiple targets out there.
see, back in my day, we didn't have multiple targets. We downrange, one silhouette, that was it. And until I got into narcotics and stuff and we did some combat shooting, otherwise it was never multiple targets. It was one target straight on.
Well, the good news is the training that's done now on the range and our qualification there in Garland, I can tell you for sure, it's not just qualification, it's training. There's a training benefit to the qualifying course. You're asked to do things that you're liable to have to do in the real world.
Good.
And they try to simulate that as much as they can. That's what makes it valuable.
Right.
And but in any case, after I had reloaded, I'm approaching the passenger again, who still is the only one that's moving, and he isn't moving much at that point. And a group of my SWAT guys came to my rescue.
Now, they hear the gunshots, right? I guess
Right.
from other parts of the event center, right? So I'm sure now everybody's comes running in, right?
Yeah, well, it was coordinated. It wasn't just free for all. There was they knew. So I did hear on the radio. I didn't have time to get on radio and say,
Right.
hey, I'm in the middle of something here. But
right back.
I heard somebody say first initiated that there were shots fired, and then somebody said, where are they coming from?
Well, they
and
said-
somebody said, it sounds like it's where Stevens is at.
It's funny that this is the first time I've heard this story.
He may be good with a gun, but he sucks with a microphone.
This is the first time I actually heard this story, believe it or not. So, actually, I can tell you exactly what the first thing was said. It said, shots fired, officer down. Because what happened?
Yeah.
Because what happened was I was embedded inside with the team.
Right.
And when you heard what you heard, which was like, well, it looks like we're about to close it up. I knew it was about to start happening, and my ears had been sweating because we were there, 18 hours, I think, that day, 19 hours.
You guys were, I wasn't.
So my ears are just sweating.
You were inside the building.
I was inside, so I peeled my headphones away. I literally just started going like this, and as I peeled my headphone away, I'm literally taking off my comm. I hear ta 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 ta, and I hear officer because someone had mic'd up, and someone goes, shots fired, officer down. And the first person I thought of was you, because I knew where you were positioned at, and we just knew. We just it's gonna be there.
So then your SWAT team comes from outside.
There was portions
all
of my team that we had in various places.
And they knew once they knew where it was coming from, they knew who was going to respond. But they show up and they take up a position of cover behind my car, right? Well, they're hollering at me as I'm advancing on this guy, because my next round was going to be a for sure round, if you get my drift. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to make sure that I was close enough that wasn't going to be any kind of an issue. And they're hollering at me trying to get my attention.
How many rounds you said he fired at the security guard? How many rounds did he get off?
Well,
was it an automatic AK or was it?
It was a drum fed AK.
It was a. Right? I think it was a semi-automatic, but they had a drum mag.
It was a drum mag on it. I think it was something like I say it's Carol. I think it was like something like 67 rounds or 60-something rounds.
I heard it was like 35 rounds.
It was some crazy. It was a lot of rounds.
Between the two of them, they got about 35 rounds off.
Yeah, it was more than a normal magazine for a rifle. That's for sure. Yeah.
So it makes it even more remarkable. He's doing this.
Well, on the fire. Oh, yeah.
That's a lot of rounds. 35 rounds
and
or so.
GISD,
no cover.
the security officer ended up being shot.
Yeah, the security officer did take a round in his calf. One of them, I don't know which leg it was, and we aren't sure it might have been a ricochet off the street that went through his calf. Could have been a through and through. All in all, once they evac'd him and got him to the hospital, they cleaned him up, gave him an antibiotic, put a Band-Aid on it, and sent him home. I mean, if you're going to get shot with an AK, that's the way to get it done.
Impressive.
Well, I'm just,
impressive.
I got to stop you real quick because I'm getting this picture in my mind, and I would be remiss if I didn't say that. Looking at you, Tank, right? How big you are, right? I'm picturing all your team members are about the same size. Or big guys?
They're all,
big guys?
like any special team, they're all very,
all right.
varying
so
sizes.
your whole team was taking cover behind a police car. Well,
that was
Officer
it.
Stevens is still engaging.
That was it.
So
literally hiding behind trees, buildings. We were taking cover. We're like, oh my God!
And, I could see Greg going, come on,
like, guys,
what's going on?
I need support. I need support.
Actually, what was happening was they're hollering at me, trying to get me to a point of cover, right?
Right.
And it's kind of like when my wife's talking to me during a Cowboy game from the kitchen.
Shut up.
I hear something going on back there, but I ain't paying attention to that. I'm in a whole nother zone.
One of them was me because one of the guys say, hey, put, you got Greg. So I say, okay. And so I put him behind the armored vehicle. Well, at this time, this guy,
that was
they
later.
were worried that they were going to pull the pin. And I was like, hey, you okay? Well, I guess that would be too far ahead of your story.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that in a second.
Yeah,
but
in any case, they got my attention and took me back to a point of cover, and then we started the mop-up operation. But the next thing that we had to consider was there were a couple of things. One was that car or either one of those bodies rigged.
Oh no, that was it. Then what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and then the other thing was what do we need to do next? And that was prepare for a secondary attack.
Right. Now, was any of these perps still moving at the time?
So that part where I pulled it behind the armored car because we were up against the car. So it actually was during that time.
Okay.
And he's amped,
Of course.
So I put my hand on his shoulder and I say, hey, brother, are you good? And he looks at me and smiles. He goes, I got him, man. I don't know, I'm still here, And I was like, good job, brother. You did a great job. Just stay right here. And meanwhile, we're on a SWAT channel. So SWAT, we're blasting with information right now. What's going on? Our snipers are saying some stuff, gathering us some intel. And actually, at that point in time, the headlights. One of the snipers said, "Hey, the headlights just alternated on and off." Well, that's in our world, and police officers are well more trained in these days. But in our world, we're like, oh, okay, there's something remote going on, and that's what he's talking about. And then that's when.
So now you're thinking an IED.
Well, one of the guys, one of my specialties is WMD, weapons of mass destruction, along with some other guys, and so one of them looks back at me and says, "Hey, Tank, what do you think about this?" So we can't get back far enough right now. So that's when the call was made, and I'm grabbing him and saying, "We're moving,"
Yeah. And interestingly enough, after that, we ended up he was the armored vehicles in the back, and I was in the back with a couple of other officers on a perimeter assignment for probably 2 hours before they ever relieved me from duty. Nobody ever thought. And then it comes on the radio and somebody says, "Anybody know where Stevens is at?"
I was told to keep an eye on him. I'm keeping an eye downrange, and I have one person say, "Hey, what happens if this happens?" I'm like, "Well, it's not going to be good." So I'm trying to give information. But meanwhile, I don't know if you remember this, but meanwhile, he tells me "thank you" like 3 times. "Hey, Tank, thank you." And I thought, "Hey, no, thank you, buddy." And then he says it again, and I'm like, "Oh man, I'm losing Greg, man. What's going on?" And basically, he gives me a compliment on some basic training stuff that I'll never forget, but yeah, that's what and I was wondering, like, why is Greg? Why? And I remember he just had this smile, like, "Thank you, man. Thank you."
You don't remember? I remember exactly what I said.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, "Hey, I said, I want to say thanks. because I'm here because of all the tank training that we did.
That's
what I said.
That's what he said.
I remember that vividly.
I'll never. You could give me any critique you want as an instructor. I run with that one. I think any instructor would be proud to have that. And he performed. And I know he's about to get back to the story, but because his movement was textbook. Quite honestly.
Now, you get into the back of, and I don't want to jump the story either, but I just want to get to the point where we were at. So you pull him behind cover. You get him into the armored vehicle.
Negative. No, we're behind. We're just using it as literally just cover.
Cover. Okay.
Zone. Yeah. Okay. All right. What we thought would be a blast zone until I figured out what was going on, and I was like, we're done.
So you're getting reports from the snipers that the headlights are flashing, which is
it could be a VBID, vehicle borne.
Could be right.
Yeah,
could be
vehicle borne explosive.
Could be a signal.
Could be anything.
Could be anything.
So, but you know that you guys have to take some cover because you don't know what the next plan is, secondary attack. So now go ahead.
So anyway, we're back there on our perimeter position, and eventually I got relieved, and they took me to the mobile command vehicle, and then we stood around for hours. It was about 4:30 in the morning before I ever got to go home. They were thinking they
19
were 19
hours we were there, I think. So
they were. Yeah, well, you were there before I got there. You were there early in the morning before I got there. But
so you were there. See, I guess police procedures may have changed from when I was, because usually it's officer-involved shooting. You know, you're taken away from the scene. You're taken to the hospital, given a medical evaluation.
I already know what you're saying. We would agree with you. That is still procedure these days.
Oh,
but it's a little different when it's a terrorist attack off the cuff.
I guess. I guess
no one had a plan for that one.
Right,
and he's in the middle like this. So imagine. Sorry. But imagine the X. Like, so when we think of being on the X as a shooter, it's like you said, you train for one guy. So the X is bad guy and officer. Here's the X. Well, our X was now. Well, at one point in time, the perimeter was 2,000 meters.
Right.
2,000 meters.
Right.
That's huge. So where does he go? Like, you're talking about going like, hey man, we're gonna go to I-30. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was a. I mean, who would have thought? You know, I mean, that's what we talk about here.
I'm going to interject something on this because I had an opportunity to be a part of the SWAT command staff for many, many years, and I heard the current SWAT commander in a constant battle of sorts, again, to allude to what Greg was saying. You know, you want the DEFCON 5 situation, but you're not going to get it because it's budgetary issues. But there was a constant variety of sports, I guess, if you want to say, between our brand new assistant chief over patrol and the command structure. So everything is based on $1. And we don't want, and it's worse now than it's ever been, we don't want anybody seen. We don't want to create problems. So we're going to put the SWAT team in the most invisible place. They wanted to have these guys at a practice football facility on the backside of, if I remember correctly, the academy sports. Like, I mean, talk about tossing a football another 1,000
out of
yards.
sight, just out of sight, no trucks.
We don't want to draw any attention. We don't want the media. We want to make this thing look as simple as it actually is. And therefore, there's a lot of money spent, as much as we're allowed to, because believe me, I was 17 years on the SWAT team. You know, we hate paying you guys overtime. This incident just occurred. The guys that have to write the statements get them. Everybody else change uniforms, get back out and start answering calls. So that's the game we play. So we have a brand new assistant chief who, and I love the guy to death, and he's one of our prime candidates will help with the PTSD and things. But he said this in less than a minute. At the end of that event, he said to himself, how am I going to explain the expense I put forth to make this thing safe? The first shots were fired, and his next statement to himself was, there's a lot of my guys dying right now. That's the assistant chief. The event was planned to end with nothing. I mean, it was literally going to be, this is going to be a waste of our time. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
I was involved in the very first officer killed in the line of duty, 1989, when our first officer was killed, Gerald Walker. We had no honor guard, 0. So here we are, now we're back at the police station, and everybody's going, okay, well, who knows how to fold a flag? Who knows how to get a hold of DPD? Who's done an honor guard detail before? You know, so never having experienced this, and I can go way back into the 80s when I got on SWAT, we used to tell our commander, we want to train for this, and his response would be, you know, blankety blank, you can't train for everything. The what ifs are always going to happen. Well, you know what happens after that shooting and what we've seen since 9/11? We train for the what ifs.
Yeah.
Because those are potentially now going to happen. And dollar-wise, cities can't spend that kind of money. So we have to come up with ingenious ways of doing it.
Or seek out grants.
Seek out grants or just another school that allows you the opportunity. And I can remember going to Austin, Texas, and there was a military combative unit that came to train us. And they were coming in, you know, I was in the military too. They would strafe the building and then go in and look for survivors or another suspect. And, you know, we said to our SWAT team, what the hell are we doing here? I mean, we're not going to ever do this. This is not, we're not the Army. We can't train like that. Well, guess what? Now the military is more police state, and the police are more military, if you really think about it. And so I can sympathize with these guys because the oh shit factor happened, and now there's no plan because we weren't planning for it.
Right.
If you know what I'm saying, everybody thought it could happen, but there was no plan for what happens if it happens.
Right.
I'm going to go back to.
You're gonna have to come over here though, because no one.
When you follow up the question,
Yeah.
I just want to know when you were engaging with the guy, were you aware that he was firing rounds at the security guard? Were you able to perceive that while you were engaging the passenger? Did you see him?
No, I didn't really realize what was going on with the driver until I downed the passenger and then acquired him, because I couldn't see what he was doing because I was too focused on.
Was he firing? Did he have all his attention on the security guard and not you? And was he firing at you?
Probably. Here's the thing. People ask me all the time, say, well, you know, if they got off 35 rounds between them or what, how did you not ever get hit? I said, well, when you're taking 45 rounds, your aim can be just somewhat
a little off.
You know,
a little skewed.
Yeah, a little skewed. I said.
Yeah.
That's so it's you know, that was probably here's the thing. I had one conscious thought that immediately came to mind when this thing started to unfold, when I see the guy stepping out of the car and getting out with the rifle. And that conscious thought was, I'm standing here in no man's land. I have no cover around. The only way that I'm going to survive this thing is I'm going to have to take the fight to them.
Right.
I have to be the offensive one in this battle to have any chance of survival. And it sucked at that, you know, really and truly. You got
well,
two
you're
guys with
outmatched
rifles.
firearms wise.
Well, I was outmanned by, it was 2-1.
Yeah.
The firearms were better.
Superior.
Everything. But I knew that if I wasn't the aggressor in that battle, I had no chance to survive. If I turned around and tried to get to my car or any of that, I wouldn't have had a chance to survive. And that's why not only did I fire on those guys, and I kind of stayed on my spot, and we had done some real limited moving and shooting stuff, and I don't do that very good.
No, that's what I was talking about earlier.
That's not my cup of tea. Now I can shoot, move. You know, that works for me. Yeah. But to actually be moving while I'm discharging my firearm.
And tactics are changing on it, by the way, because a lot of times it's time to shoot, and then move. You know, that goes back and forth.
Let me ask you a question, maybe, because you know there's a lot of people out there that are not law enforcement that are, you know, you have a lot of liberals out there. You have a lot when you talk about defunding the police and this and anything, you know, what you went through, right, from the moment that car pulled up to the moment the two perps were down. What would you say the time frame was?
Probably no more than 15 seconds.
More than 15 seconds?
No more than 15
right,
seconds.
No more than 15 seconds, which gives you less than a split second or 1 second to really make that decision, that grasp decision to save your life. Pretty much, right? You had to make that, right? Would that be fair to say?
I see where you're going with it.
Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, it's fair to say.
You know, you had, you know, we hear the news, we hear these backseat reporters always saying, well, you could have shot him in the leg, you could have did this. No, there's no time for that. You had, you know, this is police work. This is what policing is all about. You don't know when what's going to happen and the what ifs that are going to happen.
These are life and death situations.
These are, and
reporters don't have life and death situations.
That's it.
And they're writing about what happened. They're not standing there looking down the barrel of a.
And that's what I want to bring to light. I want to show that this incident had minimal time to think about what your next step is going to be.
Well,
you had to go on, but you had to go off your training.
Put it in perspective this way. Put it in perspective this way. Officer gets involved in some kind of a deadly force situation. He has to use his gun. He shoots somebody. He goes immediately to a shooting review board and your internal affairs unit and all that kind of stuff. And you have a committee of people that sit down and they watch video and they hem-haw over it and they talk about it and they think about, well, what about this? What about that? And they can spend sometimes weeks looking this thing over. And if it's a committee of 4 or 5 people, sometimes after that, they'll get together and they'll have a consensus, but they won't even unanimously. After weeks, they can't figure out what the right thing was to do. And the poor guy out there on the job has less than 1/10 of a second to make that same decision that those guys couldn't make in 3 weeks.
Right.
So,
under fire, under duress.
Talk about what we were talking about on the way over here. Look what happened to that cop in Nashville.
Yeah, his tactics were terrible. Just recently, the officer that was shot in Nashville stopped the woman that had drugs in the car, and she shot him from sitting in the car there, and she ultimately died from her gunshot wounds. But his tactics were terrible. He hesitated over and over and over again, and that's part of that is going to have to be the climate in which we're asking these young men and women to do this very difficult job.
So I go back on when I said when I said he was outmatched on the superiority of firearms. He was outmatched on the loadout of ammo and the caliber of ammo and the velocity of the ammo, the accuracy of the weapon systems against his. But sometimes what people forget, and this goes back on what you just said, is, and it's the same thing I taught on the range, is, and that I can't give you. You have to have it. It can be trained on you. You can accept it, but you either have it or you accept it, or you just, I don't know what to do after that. I can't fix it. But it's the determination and aggression. What those guys didn't have is those guys, I'm telling you, if they didn't have their training and they had a mindset, but they weren't ready for that, and he threw a wrench in it. Yep. And when he turned the tables around turned the chessboard and became the aggressor, became the lion, that's where he had him. You can't, that gives you such an absolute advantage on the battlefield. In this case, literally a battlefield. You can't outmatch aggression. Now you have aggression with training and good sight picture.
You're going to come. Your odds are much better.
He could have been shooting a 22. Now it might have been too effective against him, but he would have been planting his rounds, and that's the difference. That's what makes it so remarkable. That he was outmatched in every sense. He was outmatched technically on cover, because everyone knows about a 45 caliber round. That's a school bus coming down range at you, and it doesn't puncture through vehicles very well. So they even had cover.
So let's take that. Let's take what you just said and what Dave just said, right? The mindset, right? If we put that same cop, now who's under the pressure of being judged by the whole world, by being judged by the media, by second guessing his actions, right? We're placing him in that same position, right? You, Greg, you have 40 plus years training, okay? You know, we got that young 5-year cop who's got a new baby at home. He's got a house. He's got a mortgage. You know, his wife just bought a car, and he's going, man, if I do something wrong, I'm losing everything, right? So now that's in his head. Indemnity, there's no indemnity on police officers anymore. What is that cop going to do? Is he going to second guess himself? You had a tenth of a second to make that decision, to engage or not to engage, right? This cop's going to wait that 5 seconds, and what's going to happen? That terrorist is going to put him away.
Yeah. Well, and then countless other people lose their lives.
And countless other people. So, that's the scary part about this, and that's what we have to change, is that this story needs to be told. This story needs to be out to save lives, to save future law enforcement lives, because what you did was not only training, mental mindset, tactics. You were being you went in there with not being judged by the media, by the liberals, by the mass people that are out there that think they can do a law enforcement's job from behind a desk. We got to bring law enforcement back to what it is. Yes, it gets aggressive. Yes, it gets dirty. Yes, it gets dangerous. But you know what? You don't get dead that way.
But you also have to train like you're going to actually perform.
Correct.
You can't do the old LAPD method where every 6 months you go to the range, you fire 25 rounds at 25 yards, and you're out of there. We would have every month was a combat training month for us just for patrol in Burbank. Every month we had shoot houses set up, and the 1 month the shoot might be where you don't shoot.
Right.
Because you're given a scenario, you have to perform in the scenario. You can't do the old LAPD method of 25 rounds at 25 yards every 6 months. You're good to go out. You have to train like you're going to perform.
Yeah, that's it. We're gonna take a quick break, quick commercial break. When you come back, we want to hear about the aftermath. We want to hear about what Tank. You were bringing up some stuff about things that you learned after the fact. And I'm sure, Greg, there's a lot of input that you could put in after the fact. Let's look at the playbook. Let's look at the mental status of some of the officers that were on the scene, how it's affected them today. So we're going to be back with Greg Stevens, Tank, and Dave Swavey. It's been an awesome show so far, so stay tuned.
Hi, this is your host, Pastor Clemens, and your co-host, Pastor Kathy Hamilton, of the God's Warrior Show, broadcasting live each week on Saturday at 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. from Global Life Park in Arlington, Texas. Now log on to hear feel-good gospel music, inspiration words, and exciting guest interviews. Be sure to log on to God's Warrior Show on Fishbowl Radio Network every Saturday to receive the blessing that you've been waiting for.
Fifth Avenue Nutrition of Garland is a twist on your normal coffee or donut shop. Serving coffee, teas, shaved ice, and delicious ice cream shakes, pastries, and muffins, Fifth Avenue offers a wide variety of delicious drink concoctions, ranging from specialty coffee, nitro brews, meal replacement ice cream shakes, to energy-boosting fruit-flavored teas. At Fifth Avenue, we proudly serve B Black Rifle Company brand coffee. At Fifth Avenue, we back our blue by offering free coffee to all uniformed members of the service. Visit us at 414 West Avenue D, Garland, Texas, open from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Hop in and see us. We have a bright idea to make you healthy, delicious, and fun.
Fishbowl Radio Network wants to congratulate the Red Pill Experience, this month's show of the month on Fishbowl Radio Network. Jump in every Tuesday from 3 to 4 p.m. Central Standard Time and start streaming the Red Pill Experience on Fishbowl Radio Network, the most listened to internet radio network of its kind.
Here's today's STEM tip. Don't throw out that old plastic bottle. Repurpose it by turning it into an awesome terrarium. Just fill it with sand, pebbles, soil, and your favorite plant. It'll grow sealed right in its own ecosystem. Learn more at She Can STEM. A message from the Ad Council.
Hey, this is Stevie B with the Am I Worth the Time show, host of the year 2020. Want to encourage you to keep it locked right here at Fishbowl Radio Network. Y'all be safe, you hear?
We all know that safety comes first, but you don't want to look like your parents are sending you on a bike ride. Here at Micro DOT Helmets, we're focused on lightweight DOT certified helmets that protect and still look great, so you don't have to look like that mushroom from Super Mario. If you do have an accident, we'll ship you a fresh new helmet. Real lifetime warranty, only at Micro DOT Helmets, a veteran-owned business.
And welcome back. You're listening to the 99% Radio Network, and I am not Sideshow, but we got a full house today, so we're swapping around a little bit. We're talking to retired Officer Stevens from the Garland Police Department. He's been recounting, along with Tank and Dave Swavey, the events that happened back in 2015 at the Curtis Culwell Center. when Garland came under terrorist attack. And I don't know about y'all, but just listening to this, I'm fascinated by my perception of this is, and you probably, I don't know how old you are, but you probably have even
72.
Are you 72 years old?
No. 71.
27.
No.
27.
No, actually, I'm 65.
65. So
65.
you're just a little bit older than I am. And when we were talking to Tank and Swavey a few weeks back about doing this, one of the things that Swavey said, he said, one of the things you'll notice right away, and it's very true, is that he's just a regular guy. But he was the right guy in the right place at the right time, prepared, because guys like Tank had, instilled certain things in you probably over and over
I didn't
again.
instill him. I gave him some additional training points. He had it instilled in him already.
Okay.
I can't instill in that.
Part of that is I started my police career in May of 1978. Policing was a whole different ball of wax in 1978. As a matter of fact, what they trained me to do in 1978, they would indict you for today. Literally. I mean, there were things that was acceptable back then that certainly wouldn't be today. And part of that was there was a different realm of toughness amongst law enforcement officers because it was expected of them. Socially, it was expected of them. And I think that nowadays it's much more cerebral than it used to even be back then. Now, not only do you have to have that toughness physically and mentally, but you've got to be kind of an armchair lawyer and what's the word I'm looking for? A counselor, all kinds of. You got so many hats that you got to wear now, and but that will to survive and that will to fight and that willingness to be the aggressor, that was pounded into us early on in our police career. And I'm not sure that we get enough of that in training these younger men and women that are brave enough to sign on the line and take on this job.
You and I, and Mongo wasn't too far behind me, but we're from, I was started 79.
There you
so
go.
when you're
Good
right
God,
there
that's
as well,
such a
right?
long time
80,
ago.
so we're in there. And that was when back in the day, somebody wanted to tangle, you engaged. There was no hesitation. You weren't, consulting a lawyer or whatever. You were just getting after it. And it is.
It was, back in the day, somebody took a poke at you. It was, you were expected to respond in a aggressive and swift manner in hopes that the next time they engaged law enforcement, they wouldn't find it to be a good idea to take a poke at that guy. It was a learning experience at that point.
But it even worked with inside the group, not just so much, because guys would show up at the call and say, whoa, this guy's not in the hospital, but even goes one step further. I mean, society has changed so much now, we just deal with it. But if you took more than one day off, you were sick. Talking about bubbling.
We've got a call coming in. Nobody answered the call on the board.
We'll get to your call in just a moment.
So
we get our first.
keep letting it ring, caller. We're about to answer it.
Hello, caller. You're on the air with the 99% Radio
How can we
Network.
help you?
How can we help you?
Hi, I was wondering if the Howard Scott show was on yet, or by calling the right number.
No, Mr. Scott's in the studio next door to this one, and he's not here yet. He comes on at 6 o'clock.
But he's got an awesome show coming up,
He
so
does.
call back after 6.
Yeah, I know that, but I get confused on this and that. I wasn't sure which one I should click on.
When you do talk to him, tell him Mongo and 12 said hi.
Hi from Tank, by the way.
Who, Mom?
How you doing?
Okay.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You're welcome.
BR549.
So, where were we?
That's not the first time that's ever happened on this show. We had
That's
some
so
ladies call up one time want to talk sports. They thought we were the sports talk show, but
I figured somebody would be selling us an extension to our auto.
They go home, they're crying. I want to talk sports. I didn't know I had these feelings.
oh shoot. Go ahead. You were saying.
So so the mentality, obviously, like I said, with everybody, we can call them millennials, X-Gen, whatever. But if you took more than one shift off, the guys around you would say, "Hey, thanks a lot. I'd take care of your district while you're gone." That's a whole different mindset. I mean, I worked 29 years before I took a sick day, and I was pissed when apparently she wants to talk to us now.
Yeah, why not? That's good.
Hello, caller. You're on the air with the 99% Radio Network. Who are we talking to?
Hi. Am I the third caller now?
I think that ship has sailed.
This is awesome.
Never know what you're going to get. Is this John Walsh?
Well, am I the third caller now?
No. You're number one. All attention is on you.
Great show, guys. I love you guys. I'm proud of all of it. Bye.
I bet he's listening to the show on delay. Hey, brother. Sorry.
I think he hung up.
Another awkward moment.
Hey, I think he probably picked up that 24-pack.
I said I'm going to drink Pabst Blue Ribbon, and I meant it. One case later. Well, this is awesome. How many phone calls is that? 6?
That's a new record.
That's a new record for us.
Amazing.
Yeah. Hey, Sideshow.
So we've had 2 calls.
Yeah.
Both not for us.
Yeah. John Walsh called again, wanted to know if he was the third caller, but it sounded like he had stopped on his way home and picked up the 24-pack. You promised him.
Someone called in to know if we were another show.
They wanted to call for the Howard Scott show. But,
just to give you some good news, and the reason I did have to walk away was the veteran that I know you took care of a veteran this week. I also took care of a veteran who decided to go get help.
Good.
On his own, so I got a good text that's saying that he is going to be he's going to get some rehab. So that's awesome.
So, to make Dave's point, you definitely a different mindset today than it was back when we first started. Because back in the day, you could just take care of business, do what was needed to be done. So let's talk about the aftermath of what happened. You went back to work how soon after?
Well, I had to take a minimum of 5 days administrative leave.
Not to include weekends.
Yes, working days, and which was okay because it happened on a Sunday, so nice. I had to take the next week off. But I also had to go see a mental health professional to make sure that I was doing okay, and fortunately I was, and so I went back to work the following Monday.
Now,
because part-time jobs required.
Yeah, that's right.
I like to go work
at the bingo parlor.
I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask something real quick on the mental health aspect. What you were just engaged in, the firefight that you were engaged in, the terrorist attack, the mental health at that point, 2015. Did you go to follow-ups, or was it just one, hey, you okay?
It was mostly just a hey, you okay kind of thing. However, the mental health professional I went to spent some time talking to me, and we probably talked for close to an hour. So it wasn't just a hey, how you doing? I'm fine. Okay, see you later kind of thing. She kind of went over some things with me and talked about some things that might happen, might not happen. Reassured me that it was okay to be okay. It was okay not to be okay. Just kind of be aware that some of these things might show up. She asked me about how I was sleeping. She asked me how my appetite was, all kinds of things. And she said, if any of those things change, especially significantly, call me and we'll talk about that, and don't worry about it, And she was very reassuring, actually. So she did an excellent job of putting me on it's okay, whatever happens, it's okay, and it's fixable. And if it's a problem, we can make it right. Don't worry about it. Just relax, and everything will be fine.
As I recall, after your first shooting, I can't remember how long we stayed on the scene before we got called back to the station, but I think we ended up at Sergeant Brink's house that night, didn't we?
Well, I got sent away right away back to the station, which was nice because the Super Bowl was on, so I got to finish watching the Super Bowl. But when you all showed up, my attorney didn't show up for probably 3 or 4 hours. Then I was interviewed, and after that interview, we did go back to the sergeant's house later on that night, well after midnight.
Yeah.
And we talked all night long.
We talked all night long. Debriefed. Into the morning, debriefed.
Yeah, we debriefed through breakfast.
Adolph Coors was there. He helped in the debriefing.
Well, I never got to leave the scene. And
well, you guys had a little different dynamic because it was still locked.
It was a live scene, and they wanted to do a walkthrough. And for those listening that don't know what a walkthrough is, most of the time, if there's an officer involved shooting, once the scene is secure, they'll bring the officer down with the investigators, and they'll, just to have him say, well, I was standing here and the bad guy was there and this is what happened and then I did this and to give them an idea at the scene of exactly what happened. Well, our bomb unit was too busy trying to figure out if either of those guys were rigged or the vehicle was rigged, and they kept thinking that they would clear the scene and we'd be able to do that walkthrough. But finally, at about 4:30 in the morning, I figured out they weren't going to be able to do that, so I was allowed. We were allowed to go on home after that. So that was a long day, and a lot of people don't know, but we were making a joke about part-time jobs a little bit ago, but I had worked a part-time job up until. I'd worked during it was a Saturday, so I'd worked a part-time job in the evening from like 7 to 10:30. And then when I was working my part-time job, they were shorthanded on late night patrol, and they were looking for people. And I volunteered to go work. So I went in at 11, and I worked from 11 to 7 until 7 Sunday morning, and then went home and took a nap, and then came back up to the Culwell Center at 1:30 to work my other little part-time job. But that's cops. That's what cops do. I mean, it's crazy. And but I loved working late night patrol, and I worked a lot of overtime in patrol because they were always seemingly shorthanded, and I'd go work on the weekends. I'd go work. Funny, and I can tell you a funny story about that. We were talking about the mentality and all that kind of stuff. I remember one night I was working late night patrol, and I was headed to my district, and I made an arrest, and I came back to the jail and left again, and wasn't gone very long, made another arrest, came back to the jail, and on my 4th trip to the jail, one of the younger officers, they're expecting this old guy to be retiring. He volunteered for 8 hours of overtime on late nights so that he could get a good night's sleep, right? Well, that wasn't me. I loved working. I loved working at night. And finally this guy says, man, he happened to be in the jail with his first arrest, right? And he says, man, where are you finding all these guys? And I said, well, mostly in your beat. Because I had to drive through his district to get to mine. And heck, I couldn't even get to my district for having to arrest somebody in his.
When you started the story, when you started saying you're going to take up some easy overtime and stuff, I was sending Mongo a message because, and he'll tell you in his story when he got into one of his shootings, I'm going to work a little easy overtime, I'm going to scoop up a quick arrest, spend the rest of the night in the station, then I'm going to go watch the Raiders play.
There you go.
That was the downfall right there. You wanted to go watch the Raiders.
It didn't work out too well, but that's the mindset.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, ultimately, you are nominated for a very prestigious award. You're not, and you're not. I don't know what they call it, but a medal of American Medal of Valor, or what's the official name of it?
It's called the Law Enforcement Medal of Valor. It's issued by the Department of Justice. It's the highest award offered for law enforcement by the federal government.
So, you're nominated to go and receive this award at the White House.
Correct. And the now chief in Garland, who's a good guy, I think a lot of him, we worked together for a lot of years. he actually made that nomination via some kind of email kind of thing, and told me about it. Said, "Hey, I nominated you for this thing," and I said, "Okay, whatever." I mean, I just didn't really even have any inkling that I would even be, that's one of those emails that would get deleted, but it didn't turn out that way. And I did. I was later notified that I had been chosen to be one of 5. Each year they present 5 officers with this Law Enforcement Medal of Valor, and they limit it to just 5. And I was fortunately selected to be one of those 5.
So how did you find out you were going to get to go to the White House and receive it?
The then assistant chief, now chief, came to my office in the traffic unit and said, "Hey, would you like to go to the White House and get a medal?" I said, "Sure." And it was rather informal. He said, "Well, you're going to be getting some information via email from the Department of Justice," and they started sending me correspondence. And then it was kind of a funny story. I remember I was in a Starbucks one day having a cup of coffee, talking to some people, and this was in the process before I left. And I was actually emailing with staff at the White House. So I'm standing there in Starbucks and said, "Yeah, I got an email from the White House today." And after I said that out loud, I stopped and I paused and I thought, how crazy does that sound? I got an email from the White House. I mean, a guy that's just...
It wasn't spam.
Yeah. This is a street...
They didn't want to update his car warranty, right? Yeah.
This is a street cop from Garland, Texas. I got an email from the White House. Yeah. But anyway, it's rather surreal. But there was obviously correspondence that went on. And myself and my wife and my son were all invited to go to the White House and for this presentation.
So they picked the time and the place to go. You go to Washington. Did anyone else from Garland get to go with you?
The nominating assistant chief went with me, so this was a year later, about a year later. Well, just almost to the day. It was May the 16th of 2016 that we went to the White House, and that was quite an experience to meet the president, and also got invited after the fact. Senator Cornyn, John Cornyn, got a hold of the assistant chief somehow. Who knows how all that happens, and invited me to the Capitol. And he's one of 2 senators that actually office in the Capitol, and so I got to go to the Capitol and meet with him in his office and shake hands and get some pictures made and actually get a chance to meet him.
So it's not very often that street cops get to meet the president. Mongo got lucky; he got to meet. You met 2, right?
Truman,
yeah, you met.
right?
You met Clinton,
Washington,
Roosevelt,
and Bush 41, right?
Met Bush the younger and Clinton.
Okay, so 43. Going to the White House and meeting the president, going through the awards ceremony. What was it like to meet the president of the United States in those circumstances?
Well, we were invited to a continental breakfast held in honor of the recipients of this award. That was at we were on the east wing of the White House, and it was in the Red Room. And this is a large room, and they had this large table set up, and it was they had coffee and pastries and that kind of stuff. And the room was full of all kinds of dignitaries. I mean, there were senators and not too many of those, and representatives, but there were judges and police chiefs and other dignitaries from all over the country and in D.C. that were there. So my wife and my son and I, we got to be a part of that, and we were enjoying that opportunity to meet some of these really interesting people. I met a chief of police from Delaware that was actually the chairman of the committee that made the selection of the officers that actually were going to receive the award, and to hear about that process was interesting. But he said, as many nominations as they get every year, it always boils down to like 5. And he said, because I asked him, I said, it's got to be incredibly difficult to figure out who you're going to give these awards to, simply because policemen do incredible things every day, and most of the time don't get any recognition for it. So the ones that are I said, I don't know how you do that. He said, it's really kind of unusual, but he says it always seems to always boil down to these like top 5, hands down. And the committee has very little controversy about it.
So did you get to have some personal interaction with the president?
I did.
How'd that go?
So I was invited into the next room over, which was the blue room. The president had apparently come down from the residence, and he was in the blue room. So I walked into the blue room. All that's in the room is me and the president. There's a White House staffer and a photographer in there, and it was just the 4 of us in the room. They were off to the side a little ways away, and I walked to the center of the room, and he extended his hand, reached out, we shook hands, and he welcomed me to the White House, told me what an honor it was to have me there, and I'm thinking, wow. And I said, well, no, the honor's mine, to be in the home or in the workspace of the leader of the free world. I don't care who it is, and I don't care about your politics. I always look at this as this was an award that I received on behalf of the people of the United States by the leader of the free world, and that's the way you got to look at it. I don't and we laughed about this a little while ago, but luckily he didn't ask me if I voted for him.
Did he ask you anything about?
I want to talk about the continental breakfast. Was it like the Hilton Express breakfast, or was it like a Marriott?
See, only a cop would ask that. Like, what kind of pastries did they have?
Was there like an omelet station, or was it like stale bagels?
Was it Krispy Kreme donuts, or was it? What was it?
Typical damn New Yorker.
12 would be, is this like once through, or can we keep going through?
Yeah. Sir, you have a bigger plate. Like, I mean, come on.
So I'll share this with you. None of the stuff at the Continental Breakfast was bought at Walmart. I can promise you that. It was some pretty good.
They had like bear claws in there. It was like, yes.
It was some pretty
like
good.
Paul Entenmann's brand, right? Just,
You're talking about a bunch of guys that are like, when QT's throwing away the stuff in the middle of the night, where they're going, are you throwing that away? No, I'll eat that. I'll eat that.
Eat that for breakfast.
Yeah, we're good. I'll eat it.
Yet.
Sir, it's been there for whatever.
That's funny.
So did he engage in conversation about the incident, or did someone write up what happened? So when they read the citation like they do?
Well, that was later on down the line. But this greeting, this was every recipient got the opportunity to have a one-on-one conversation with the President of the United States. It was not a group meeting. I went in, shook his hand, we talked a few minutes briefly. We didn't talk about the incident per se. But interestingly enough, here's a fun side story. So my wife, unbeknownst to me, had gotten a hold of one of the White House staff folks and told them that May the 16th, that happened to be my birthday. I was in the White House getting a medal on my birthday.
Oh, wow.
Go figure.
Did
right?
you get your card at least? Happy birthday.
I got a coin.
All right, cool.
I got a coin.
Wow.
The president gave you a challenge coin?
Yes.
That's freaking cool.
That's like the best challenge coin ever.
Yeah, you can bring your 3-star generals all you want. I'm gonna throw the commander in chief out there.
He's not paying for
Yeah.
the beer, is he?
That's the Trump all coin right there, man.
So
No
anyway,
Trump intended.
No Trump. I was hoping it would go over. I was hoping you got
so
it.
anyway, so this White House staffer that was standing there while we're talking and we're exchanging pleasantries mostly and stuff like that. She says, "Excuse me, Mr. President," and he turns and gives her one of those "this better be important" looks.
Oh, wow.
Because she interrupted this interaction between me and the president, and I looked over there. I was kind of like, wonder what she wants, and she said, "Mr. President, just thought you might like to know today happens to be Officer Stevens' birthday," and he just lit up, and he says, "You're kidding me?" He says, "Well, congratulations again. Let me be the first." He reached out and shook my hand again and said, "Let me be the first to wish you a happy birthday." So I got a birthday greeting from the President of the United States on my, that would have been my 61st.
Oh, first, right.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, that was kind of a neat thing. And really what was really cool is after we visited for just a few minutes, and I'm only talking 2 or 3 minutes, 4 minutes, my wife and my son were invited in, and he greeted and spoke to them personally also. So that was really cool.
Yeah, again, I don't care what your politics are. You get a chance to meet the president of the United States.
My son was about a month from graduating high school. What kind of gift is that to give your kid?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's something he'll forever treasure.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we have pictures, they had photography. You know, they take lots of pictures at the White House.
Yeah.
So I have a whole flash drive with pictures of me and my family with the president, and
that's awesome.
And it was really cool.
Well, listen, I can say on behalf of Mongo and Sideshow and our guest host Tank today, we really appreciate you coming in and talking to us. I think with things that are going on now on the border with the terrorists coming in, they just hooked up a couple in the last week or 10 days, and I think your story, even though it happened a few years ago, is still on point. It's still very relevant. I think your comments about being prepared, having that mindset, that willingness to engage at the right time, just a regular guy being thrown into circumstances that whoever expects they're going to honestly be in the middle of a terrorist attack. Yep. Even though Garland's a big city, you think of it as kind of a small.
It's a suburb.
Town. It's a suburb.
It's overshadowed by Dallas.
You don't think that things like that are going to happen there, and I think we have a pretty large law enforcement audience that listens to this show. I think the points that you made, they should listen, take home.
Importance of training.
Exactly.
Train, man.
So can I tell you a little bit about my philosophy about training? Have we got time to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. The floor's yours.
So, training to me is something. There's a couple of things about it that I think everybody should know. The first thing you got to do when it comes to training is you got to seek training out. I mean, I don't know how many times, and for those in law enforcement and other, even military, when you get the email that says next Wednesday you need to be here to do this, and you're sitting there looking at that thing, and your eyes roll back in your head, and you have this big deep sigh, because you got to go do it, right? Well, I've been to great training, and I have been to terrible training. It's all out there. Sometimes you get stuck with the bad ones. If you look hard enough, there's something to be had in every training. You may have to hunt for it. And then there's others, there's so much to be had that you wish you could go twice so that you could get what you missed, right? So you got to seek out that training, and you got to learn what they're training you to do. But even more important than that is you've got to practice what you're trained. If you're not practicing it, it's a perishable skill. It goes away. And that's what I call training your hands. You got to go train your hands. And the other thing that's important about training for me is utilizing that training effectively. So when I was on motors or even in the car, I made a jillion traffic stops, right? One of the most dangerous things law enforcement officers do. You don't know who's in that car or what they just did or didn't do or whatever. So every time I made a stop, before I walked up to that car, I purposefully thought about, what am I going to do if a gun pokes out the window of that car? How am I going to respond to that? What am I going to do if the passenger door opens and somebody takes off running? Am I going to chase them or am I not? What's prudent under the circumstances? What am I going to do if I see the backup lights coming on, the car coming back toward me? Not as big a deal in a car, pretty big deal on a motorcycle, right, Tank?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that can be a problem. So I would think through these scenarios of what I would do if this happened. If I was making a patrol call and I was going to a disturbance and I'm going to go knock on the door, before I got up there, I'm going to figure out where I'm going to stand. I'm going to figure out when I knock on the door where I'm going to be, what I'm going to do if a round comes through the door, where do I need to be? And I would think through these things each and every time, and for 40 years. And I was better at it later in my career because I understood the necessity of it better as I got more mature in my career. And I call that training your head. So I've trained my hands and I've trained my head. And what that does is it trains you right here. That's what trains you in your heart. That's what trains you to be willing. That's what trains you when that moment of truth hits, and that none of us know what we're going to do in that moment of truth. That gives us the best opportunity to perform at our highest level because we've prepared our hands, we've prepared our head, and now we've prepared our heart. And that's my philosophy on training. Go to you're going to college and you go in to take an exam you haven't prepared for. You want some PTSD? There you go. Now you got some. You really prepared for that exam. You're anxious to get in there and do it, right? That's that willingness. And great John Wayne movie. I'll end with this so that you guys can get on with what you need to do. But the last movie he made was called The Shootist. It's a great movie. I'm a John Wayne fan. So I was watching this movie, and in one of the scenes in the movie, John Wayne's talking to the young son of the widow who owns the boarding house, and it was played by Ron Howard, and Ron Howard is just completely enthralled with this old gunfighter that's dying of cancer, basically, and they're in a woodshed, actually, is where this scene takes place, but the young son, he calls him Willem. Willem's asking him, Mr. Books, J.B. Books was this gunfighter's name. He said, Mr. Books, how have you done this? How have you been a gunfighter all these years, and how have you survived all the gun battles and gunfights you've been in and all that kind of stuff? And John Wayne's character's response was so... it just took me by surprise when I heard it. And this is long before the Culwell incident ever happened. But it was so profound. And his response was, and I'm paraphrasing this, he said, well, Willem, he said, it's not always the fastest guy, and it's not always the best shot. He said, but you got to be willing. He said, most men aren't willing. He said, they'll blink an eye, they'll hesitate a second, they'll flinch. He said, I won't. I was always willing. And that's what that training your heart or training your hands and your head does. It gets you to where you're willing. And I don't know whoever wrote those lines for that had any clue what they were talking about. But when I heard that, I thought, holy cow, that is so profound and so true and so on point to law enforcement, military, and, you've got to be willing. And we've got to train in our young men and women to be willing. And one of the best ways to start that and get as much as you can there is by purposeful training and them understanding how important the training and preparation is.
With training, maybe it's a great time for him to cue up the Motor Cops video.
We can talk about that.
To show the training
that
goes into this. We're all guys that ride motorcycles, right? But when you look at the training and the skills and the level of proficiency that these motor cops have, right? Talk about training. Look at that video, and that's one aspect of training.
Is this the one with the Harleys and partner riding?
Yes, in the circles. So,
well, quite honestly, my guys they're doing really well. I guess they could be doing better though.
I think it shows both of them.
Okay, because I'm actually we're getting ready for a competition, so we're going to be a lot tighter. Stevens knows a lot about this. There's a 4-foot line that's going to be tethering them together. They're going to need to be tighter and a little bit more choreographed, but there's just a lot of talking going on during that, and a lot of hand movement signaling your turns and where you're going. They're basically doing the barrels. They're doing the barrels. So
I was invited by Tank to come out there and watch a motor, because our viewers and listeners, they're interested in the rodeo aspect, and all that real tight technical riding. So
been there, done that. I competed.
He invited us to come out, the 99% Radio Network, to come out and watch it. So I was lucky enough a couple weeks back to go out there and observe it, and I was very, very impressed with what I saw. And by the way, although we can't show the video of it,
that's because
the
video guy,
he was a rookie apparently.
He wasn't trained in taking a video.
He wasn't trained in taking a video.
Shreves apparently takes videos like this.
I did.
It's just horrible.
I gave my word that I was going to hop on the back and ride the course with him. And
he did cloverleaf, figure eight.
Yeah, I jumped on the back.
Double
and,
360.
It was. I was very impressed that
30-mile-per-hour cone weave.
A guy that looks like him could put a
25
guy that looks like me on the back, and still do it the same way. Like I couldn't tell any deviation at all from the way he was riding when he was doing it, by himself. He took his daughter on the course.
My daughters were there.
Yeah, his daughters were there. He took his daughters on the course, and man, it was
we
the
could
same
go a
thing.
little faster because him and I were 500 pounds on that BMW.
Did you drool down his back when you were cheek to shoulder blades?
It was. I was like, please put your hands back on my shoulders.
The least intelligent thing, one of the least intelligent things I ever did in my life is we competed in a rodeo in the West End in Dallas many years ago. Now my son, who will be 23 this month, was about 4 or 5, and we competed in this rodeo, and everything was done. The patterns were still set up, and we were riding Kawasaki's back then, if that gives you any idea. And so I take my son, and I set him on the seat in front of me, kind of on the tank, put his hands on the handlebars, put my helmet on him, and we rode through the cone patterns together. And that's one of his, he'll tell you, that's one of his first and favorite childhood memories, is doing that. Yeah. So now that he's grown and after he got to be a teenager, he was always wanting a motorcycle. And I'm like, no motorcycle. Love you, son. You're not going to be the next statistic. It's just not going to happen. I still ride. I've been to Canada twice and all over the country, and I love riding still, right? Well, he buys a motorcycle. That's another whole story. But he buys a Harley Ultra Classic, 2008 Harley Ultra Classic. And he tells me he's got it, right? And so I had just had my left knee replaced about a month before that. And I'm worried to death that he's going to kill himself on this motorcycle. So I said, son, meet me at the parking lot of the school next to where he was living at the time with some other guys. And so a month after knee surgery, I'm on my motorcycle, which I have an Ultra, and I rode over there. And I said, and I showed him some things to work on, braking and starting and using the clutch and the brake and the throttle and, together and all that kind of stuff. And I said, you've got to practice these things. You've got to master this stuff to become safe on the street. I said, you need to be able to do figure eights in the 4 parking spaces on that motorcycle. And he says, Dad, I'm going to have to call BS on that one. He said, this thing, it won't do
it will.
Figure eights. I said, yeah, it will, son, it will. He said, Dad, maybe your Kawasaki would, or maybe. I said, listen, son, it will. And he said, I'm not sure. And finally I said, you want me to show you? And now I've been off motors for a long time at this point, and I don't do a whole lot of that on my own. But he said, yeah. Thinking I was going to do it. I said, well, good. Get off your motorcycle. I didn't want to scratch mine. Anyway, I said, good. Yeah, I said, I'll show you. And I said, get off your motorcycle because I want to show you that your motorcycle will do it. And I got on it, and I made warmed up just a little bit. And then I did about 3 or 4 figure eights in those 4 parking spaces, pulled up and parked and said, see, that's what you need to learn. And if it wasn't for all the training, I feel safe on a motorcycle, but it terrifies me to watch my son ride off on that thing because he hasn't been privy to that kind of training, nor the practice.
Well, to prove that it can be done, hit the video.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't even think of that.
When I patted you on the shoulder, I didn't realize it was going to trip you out a little bit.
I'm going to ride next to you. I like to ride the way I like to ride. I like to ride riding on my left. I'm very comfortable with it. Don't mind. I'll ride on the left if I have to, but I don't like to. So I ran into him and some of the other motor guys the other day over at Homer B. Johnson, and I was going down to Duck Creek. He goes, well, I'll ride a little ways down with you. He says, I'm going down someplace on Centerville to write some tickets or whatever. So I pull out. He pulls out. He gets in there, and the next thing you know, he's like this, right on me. And he reaches out and he touches my handlebar, and I'm like freaking out. I'm like, holy shit, he's so close to me. If I move at all, I'll take us both out. And that was probably, honestly, the scaredest that I've ever been.
Yeah, I didn't realize.
On a bike.
So I gave him a little pat on the arm. Like, it's all right, man. And then I peeled off because I was like, I don't want to freak him out anymore.
Because when I was in my 20s and stuff, I'd ride and have my kid on the motorcycle. One time we went on a ride going down 101 and the 101 freeway in Calabasas, and we were thirsty because it was hot, and there was some people riding in the back of the pickup truck, and they were drinking. I said, what's this? And I pulled right up next. I said, hey, give me something to drink. And they handed it to me out of the truck. My son thought that was great. He's never forgot that. That was as close as I ever got to like a moving vehicle. And then he pulled up there and just reached over and touched it. It was like, holy crap. It scared the shit out of me because I thought, man, if I do one thing wrong, I lean a little bit this way, lean a little bit that way, I'll take us both out, And but
we run into each other all the time.
We do. We'll kick each other's bikes every now and then, or I'll tap their throttle or open or close their saddlebag on them.
When we were on Kawasaki's, it was always a fun trick to reach out, hit the guy's kill switch.
Yeah, hit his kill switch.
Boom. Yeah, but then it would backfire when you turned it back on.
So you play it?
Yeah, they played it. They already played it. Yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah, it was good. So, well, listen though, we really do appreciate you coming on the show and spending some time with us. I think it was very informative. I think the lesson to take away is preparedness, being prepared, always mentally prepared, physically prepared.
Prepared for the entirety of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a life lesson. I mean, it just doesn't apply to law enforcement. It applies to life. The better we're prepared in life for whatever we may encounter, the more likely we're going to come through it in a good way. Yeah. So preparation is the key.
Well, thank you so much for coming and joining us today. It's my honor to meet you and hear your story and spend a few minutes, and it's been a real good day. Mongo, you have anything?
Yeah, no, it was an excellent story, excellent lessons. 12 sent me a message and said, tell them about the female down in Long Beach. It's just a quick story, but it goes to what you were talking about with training and mental preparedness. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department was about to graduate a class, and so they do the night problems where they send you all out in a patrol car, and they dispatch you to a series of, I think there's 14 different scenarios you go through, and there's actors at the scenarios, and there's a proctor at the scenario. Well, I was asked to be a proctor at one of the scenarios. So we all met down at Los Alamitos racetrack where they had all the scenarios set up. The scenario that I was monitoring was a man down on the street. That's all the information you're given, which is a typical call you get dispatched to, man down. You don't know what it is. What it ultimately was an ambush call that is just, it's going to be ugly, but it's an ambush because the guy's laying on top of a pistol. The very first scenario is a Long Beach female that pulls up, and she stops her car probably about 25 yards away from this man down, and she gets on the PA and she's doing, sir, will you please wake up, sir? And after enough of this, I said, listen, there's traffic on this road. I said, there's cars. You're not going to be talking on your PA system. You're going to pull up. You're going to make yourself safe with traffic. You're going to get up and make contact with this person because you don't have been hit by a car. You have no idea what this is. So she gets closer, and as she makes her approach, the guy just rolls over, and he's got a pistol, and he caps 5 rounds into her chest. This is the first scenario that I've done of this night. She grabs her chest, and then she falls backwards on the ground and lays down on the ground. I'm like, holy shit. I didn't check his gun. Maybe he actually shot her. So I go over to her, and I look at her, and I go, you all right? She goes, he killed me. I go, what do you mean he killed you? She goes, well, he shot me right in the chest 5 times. I go, you didn't shoot him back. She goes, well, he shot me and killed me. I go, negative. I said, I don't care where they shoot you or how often they shoot you. In this situation, you pull out your weapon, you shoot back. You are not allowed to die. Because her mindset was, if I get shot, I'm going to die. That's the kind of officer right there that gets shot in the knee and dies of the injury because they're in their mind, they're convinced, I'm dying. These are life and death situations that you're talking about. You don't die, you win. It's not over till they're dead. And she had to learn that lesson hard. I don't think she graduated. and this was a couple of days before graduation, but almost everybody got shot that night, but they all returned fire.
You know what's interesting about that is knowing whether you got to know that if you engage, even if you're hit, doesn't mean you're out of the battle. You're just hit. You know, that's the difference. I don't know how many times after the Culwell thing, after the guys are down, they've taken me back to a point of cover when they got me behind the car, and then ultimately when Tank took me behind the armored vehicle and all that. I don't know how many people asked me, "Are you hit? Are you hit?" And I said, "No." I said, "No, I'm not hit." They said, and then somebody, I don't remember who it was now, but somebody says, "Are you sure?" And that's when I realized, you know what? I need to look and be absolutely sure. And I did. I did a cursory search to make sure that I didn't have blood coming out of me somewhere, because I really didn't know if I was hit or not at that point. That was the first time that the reality of, hey, I might have got hit in this thing and just don't know it yet, you know? And that's all up here. That's all that mind stuff going on. Yep. But luckily I wasn't. So, but that certainly it points to that very story. Yeah. People seem to think you get shot, you die. Well, no, you get shot, you get shot.
Keep fighting, you fight back.
And if you're wearing a vest, it may not even penetrate, but it might.
Then again, it might.
Yeah, well, you know, when I was ultimately shot, I didn't realize it while I was laying on the ground, but I was paralyzed from the neck down. And while I'm talking to the guys about what had just happened, because we're looking for outstanding suspects, he says, all right, he goes, we're going to send you to the hospital and we're going to go get this guy. I go, no way. The sergeant's name was, his last name, or his first name was Eric. We called him E. I said, A.E. I said, there's no way. I said, I can't get up for some reason. I said, get me on my feet because I'm going with you guys, because I always did go with those guys. And he goes, no, you got to go to the hospital. I said, dude, just get me on my feet, because I had no idea that I was paralyzed, and I was from the neck down. I couldn't move. That's why I couldn't get up. Kind of stupid, but.
No, that's mental toughness.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that is. That's that mental toughness that says, I'm not out of the fight. And this fight isn't over because I need to get that guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we just got a few minutes left. Just sit tight. We'll begin to wrap it up. Tank, did you have anything you wanted to ask Officer Stevens before we...
No, I just, again, this is the first time I've heard the story, so it's funny he actually told me what he said, and he's absolutely right. That's it. And I always wanted to tell you that was a huge honor for me as an instructor. I mean, you couldn't get a better compliment from
you told me that at the scene.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, there, I told you that. I was struck by that. But, yeah, I'm really proud of you. That was really awesome.
Tank was kind enough. He came and he was busy, and he was in his SWAT gear. They were wearing. You're wearing camos. When he showed up, he came to my retirement party. My wife threw a really nice retirement party for me, and he was kind enough to show up, even though he was busy doing a lot of stuff, and spent, 5 or 10 minutes saying some really nice things about me and my career, and I really appreciated that he showed up. I had several people that were willing to come out of the audience and actually. And I didn't have anything to do with the planning of this thing, but it was sure an interesting and a fun night to get to enjoy some of that and look back on a 40-year career. That's a long ride.
Yeah,
that's a long ride.
It's a long ride, man.
But it was a great ride. Don't miss it. I was hesitant when I started having the opportunity to do some training in public speaking. That's what really. Little personal note, that's when God laid at my feet this opportunity to know what to do when I retired. That was the first time that I thought, okay, now I know what I can do, because I was struggling with retiring, because I thought, what am I going to do with myself if this is all I know? A few days after my 23rd birthday, I started policing, and I was 64 or 63.
You're not alone in those thoughts, man, because I know probably we've all had them. If I couldn't be a cop or do what I do now, I did find another calling like you just described.
You got to find
That's
it.
the only thing I was ever good at.
Yeah.
If I can't use a construction tools unless I can fix it with a hammer and a screwdriver and some duct tape, my skills are zilch. Being a cop's the only thing I ever knew to do, and there is that
Well, I always tell
sense
people
of
about retirement, have a plan.
have a plan.
If you don't have a plan, keep doing what you're doing, especially if you like what you're doing. Keep doing it.
And buy tennis shoes.
Buy tennis
Buy tennis shoes.
Buy tennis shoes.
You got to get busy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we just got a couple minutes left. Again, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
We
Thank you
appreciate
for
Dave
inviting
Swavey setting in from Guns and Hoses Foundation. He's one of friends of the show and our guest host, Tank. I'm sure we're going to have you back in the future. These two guys have done a lot, opened a bunch of doors, not only for us here on the 99, but in terms of hashtag Walk the Bridge, which is coming up on the 22nd of this month. A lot of good stuff going on about that. There will be breaking news probably by this time next week. If not next week, then the week after, but it'll be coming up before too long. And then again, the Ochos on Friday the 30th. That is going to be just a hell of a party. Can't wait for that to go down and get to really honor our brother Dan Ocho Dorton. So, Sideshow, do you have anything, brother, before we
No, you can wrap it up.
get out of here? Mongo, any final words?
Next week, hopefully, we'll have Jose from the cigar store in Royce City on the show.
Also, on the 14th, we're going to have Larry Mazza, author of The Life, and Frankie Steele, his, I don't know if it's right to call him his protege, and I think possibly Tommy Dades will be on that day as well. I haven't got that confirmed yet, but I know Larry Mazza is working on that, so that'll be part 3 of our four-part.
Molly Hatchet.
Yes, and we can break the news now. We're going to have Molly Hatchet on next week as well. There'll be a part of the October High Seas Rally, October 22nd through the 29th. So until next week, as Sideshow always says, if you can be anything at all, be kind. Be kind. And until next week, we're the 99% Radio Network, and we are out.